If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 1, Prologue. 1956, Rural Texas, USA. My name is Soren Melns. I am currently 16 years old, or was. From the earliest I can remember till now I have never been happy. My mother died during my birth and my father never forgave me for it. I was lucky he even let me go to school, without it I may not have been able to endure all these years. Father isn't like those stereotypical alcoholic abusive parents who just beat their children to the brink of death. No, he was smart. He had a good job, upper management at a realty firm. He kept the house clean and never showed anything other than a smile in public. However, he was a completely different person when he got home. He didn't let me stay out longer than 3 p.m., just enough time to make the 15-minute walk, or 10-minute run, from school. If I was late by even a minute he would use a bag of soap and hit me until I no longer moved. If I was late by more than 15 minutes it would be his old high school cricket bat. He would hit my legs until wasn't able to walk and I would limp around for the next week. If anyone were to ask I'd have to say yesterday was leg day or whatever excuse I could think of at the time. I wasn't even allowed to associate with people at school. If he found out I was talking to people he would lock me in a dark closet for 2 or 3 days. I don't really know how long. Time is hard to tell in the dark, but I usually hear him go to work a few times so I assume 2 or 3. He always buys me the latest clothes and got me a clean haircut, it goes well with my handsome face. He makes me go out looking nice, he says my looks reflect him and if I don't look good he'll make sure I'm never seen again. I don't doubt his threats. If my shirt is untucked or my tie is crooked I earn a few licks from the cricket bat. Around the time I turned 14 and got into high school I started to stand up to my father. At first it only made the beating worse. But there was just one day, one time, when he went on his usual beating spree, I got a good hit in. I gave him a black eye, not going to lie I thought I was going to die that day. I didn't, I woke up in the hospital with my father by my side holding my hand, he looked concerned. Of course, his concern was fake, apparently, he had told the paramedics he had seen me getting jumped and saved me, that's how he got the black eye. Amazing how stupid people are when they have blind trust in a good man. But after that, the beating came less often, but just as severe. I had already learned not to tell people about the abuse, no one would ever believe me, my father was just too good of a man to do something so cruel. He would often help at the homeless shelter and volunteer at church services. Anything to keep up appearances. The first time I tried telling someone that's what I was told, he is just too good of a man. The first, and the only person I told was a police officer when I was 12 years old. Turned out the officer was a good friend of my father from high school, he yelled at me and told me how much my father worked for me and how much father had loved my mother. I take back what I said earlier, I did have one point when I was happy, starting a few weeks ago I started taking care of a kitten found on the side of the road on my way home from school. I made sure not to get into trouble so father didn't find out about the kitten. I kept him in my room since my room was mostly empty except for a desk and a bed I had to keep him in the closet so father wouldn't find him, the one father usually locked me in. I knew I shouldn't have kept it, I knew the kitten wouldn't have a good life with me. He was never able to leave my room but I couldn't help it, it was like a bright light in my darkness. It was my first glimpse at love and happiness even, if it was from a small animal that just loved me unconditionally because I gave it food. I even named it, Little Black, I know unoriginal, sue me. But it was simple since it was really small for a kitten and had midnight-colored fur. It was the best month and a half of my wretched life, that was until father found him. As I walk into my room, just in time from school at 2:58, I open my closet door. PSSST come here Little Black I goad. From inside the closet, I hear a small meow and see a black kitten barely 4 inches tall trotting over to me happily. This brings a stupid grin to my face, smiling ear to ear as I hug the little guy. My stupid grin quickly falls as I hear footsteps approaching quickly. Bang, my door is kicked open revealing my father's angry figure. Stupid fucking kid, what the fuck is this report card, 2Bs, 2. Are you trying to make me look bad? I stand up quickly hiding the kitten behind my back. I look at my father and say nothing. I try to give as close to my usual bland face as possible. Boy, what is that behind your back? He looks angry, really angry. It's nothing. I urge. Show me. No, my bland face turning serious as I hide my fear. Fine, your choice. He pulls out a cricket bat from seemingly nowhere. Fuck, where was he hiding that? I think as I quickly take a step back. He walks at me and swings, not at my legs like usual. I want to defend myself but I'm holding the kitten so I can't. The bat hits me on the shoulder and I start to fall over. I move the kitten to my front and curl into a ball to protect it. But unlike usual he doesn't stop hitting me, he just keeps swinging. It hurts. Let go of it you stupid fucking boy, I don't wanna leave too many bruises in one day. He says with a slight grin on his face. I don't wanna die, I don't want the kitten to die. I look up at him, a little bit of blood dripping in my eye. Oh, the boy is growing balls, going to try and hit me again? Looks like I'll have to beat some sense into you. He raises the bat to swing again. This time I watch as the bat is coming at me and grab it. That hurt. I'm pretty sure my hand is broken from catching the flat side of the bat, but I don't let go. I quickly put down the kitten with my other hand to grab it with both hands. My father tries to kick me off but I just tighten my grip and pull harder. Blood fills my left eye as I somehow get it from his hands and kick him in the leg from the ground. He falls over and I manage to stand up, still in pain. I stand over him looking down at him. He puts his hands up to protect himself. Boy, stop now or you will regret it later. I will make you regret it. I look him straight in the eyes. No. This is enough. I raise the cricket bat and I swing at his head. And I swing. And I swing. My vision is dyed red. But I keep swinging. Again. And again. And again. And again. I keep swinging until I hear a small meow next to me. I see Little Black is nuzzling my leg. I break down, my arms give out and I fall to my knees. I kneel on the ground while hugging Little Black and I cry next to the meat pile that used to be my father. I cry there until I hear sirens in the distance. On that day I was arrested, I was forced to stand trial for my actions, I was forced to witness all my father's friends and co-workers testify against me, saying I was lying about the abuse. Testify that the man who tortured me my whole life was a good upstanding man, that I was a psychopath who premeditated my father's murder to make it look like self-defense. That all my injuries from that day were merely my father trying to defend himself. And they believed it. I became the youngest person to be executed in America in almost 40 years. As for where I am now? I have no idea, it feels like I have been here forever. There is an ocean of darkness and I have nothing. I've sat here for what feels like years thinking about my life. About my father. About what I did. In all that time I have not once regretted my actions. I just hope Little Black is okay. Chapter 2, An Unknown World. After what seems like years I can once again feel air against my skin, I can hear the rustle of leaves. But I can't quite see. I just feel everything around me, it's like being blind with a new sense. I feel small lights around me and a mad desire to consume them itching in the back of my head. Especially the darker colored ones near me. As I approach one of the more dark lights I hear a scream. I hear screaming coming from an unknown person near me. I don't know why but I don't feel anything at the scream. I act purely on instinct, I can't control my own body. Perhaps it was the time in that darkness. I quickly snatch the screaming ball of light. It's a human. The ball of light turns out to be a person but I don't stop, I'm just so hungry. I put my head in front of what I assume to be their face and suck. It feels so natural, it feels good. I can feel something starting to slowly enter me, it's something I have felt once before, the first time I looked at Little Black, that shred of happiness. I want more. I hear footsteps running at me while I'm feasting. They stop and I heard a gasp. E expecto patronum. A different unknown voice yells the odd words. A white light much brighter than anything around me bursts forth from the direction of the sound and washes over me. Raah! I scream out in a voice that noticeably isn't mine. I sound like a wailing beast. I am being forced to my knees, or what would be my knees. I am more of just hovering inches above the ground now. What's going on? Why is this person attacking me? Why did I attack someone? Why is it so hard to see? I start to gain more clarity and see my surroundings better. What is a dementor doing in the Muggle world? The voice sounds like a terrified British man. Although I've only ever heard the accent on the boob tube, I remember it clearly. I see a man in front of me with absolutely no remarkable features. He has a soft face, maybe 30 years old. Certainly doesn't look like the type to fight. As I see him I notice, I'm in a graveyard and a young man maybe 20 years old is next to me fainted. I assume he was the one I was eating. Speaking of me, I realize my hands are skeletal with grey rotting flesh barely on the bone. My attire seems to be some form of a loose-fitting dark black robe. The man in front of me with what seems like a stick releasing that light pinning me to the ground. Speak. Why are you in the Muggle world? I don't know, where am I? What is a Muggle? As I try to speak my mouth doesn't move. Wait, do I have a mouth? Instead, I speak through my mind to him. I don't know how I did it, but it came naturally. However, my voice was like a stale piece of bread, as if a monotone dead man was speaking. A lost dementor? I guess we don't really know enough about them. I'll bring you to the ministry, they will know what to do with you. The man looked uncertain. This will slow my journey around the world, but I can't just leave you to roam free. Oxio trunk. With the words he swooshes the stick in his hand again. A trunk comes flying towards us and lands between us. After it lands, he looks at me. Get in. Excuse me. I look at him confused. Get in, or I'll help you in. He looks at me threateningly. To be fair, it wasn't very threatening with his soft face. I'll have to decline. I really hate dark, enclosed spaces. I try to make a wry smile, but my face doesn't move. He looks at me with an exhausted face. Fine. He walks at me and grabs my shoulder, looking a bit scared as he does it. Next thing I know, the world around me collapses and it feels like we are falling with the world twisting around us. After only a second or two, the world stops twisting and he removes his hand quickly, and I realize we aren't in the graveyard anymore. We are inside a house, a clean house at that, with books laying on the table. The top one reads, Introduction to Muggles, What You Should Know. Now stay here, I have to wipe that Muggle's memories. With that being said, he vanished again. With him gone and I not knowing what the hell is going on, I decide to start snooping through his house. Reading with my new vision is honestly a feat on its own. It's like everything around me is an ethereal mist and different shades of grey show depth and detail. After looking through his notebooks and papers on the desk, I realize he is a teacher, at a magic school no less. He teacher Muggle studies. Muggles, I have learned, is another word for a person without magic, or that's what I assumed after reading how a non-car works. Among other small things about the place called Hogwarts, I also learn the mysterious man's name is Quirinus Quirrell. The child of a pure blood and a Muggle, which makes it fitting that he teaches Muggle studies. Enjoying yourself? I hear Quirrell speak from behind me as I'm reading a student's paper on the uses of a rubber ducky. How did you get there? I speak startled, not that you could tell past my dead voice. Apparition, it's to easily teleport to places you are familiar with, not that you need it since you can just fly anywhere. I can fly. I look down at my feet to see they are not actually touching the ground. Oh, yet. I've never heard of a freshly born dementor who could speak, then again I've never heard of a dementor born out of Azkaban. Well, let's get you to the ministry. What's a dementor, and what's the ministry? A dementor is what you are called, and the ministry are the regulators of magic. I'm sure they will be happy to take you to Azkaban. What's Azkaban and why I'm cut off by him? Alright, enough questions, let's go. He grabs me by my shoulder again and we are gone. So they did indeed send me to Azkaban, and unlike Quirrell, they didn't even try to talk to me. They put me in a charm and brought me with them. The last this I remember is a man, by the name of Cornelius Fudge, a freshly instated minister, ordered I be put under the charm again and dragged to Azkaban before I could even say anything. As I regained consciousness, I'm on the beach of a small island with no noticeable end to the water around. I say island, but it's more like a tall tower with rocks and a small beach around it. There are creatures in the sky around the island. They are cloaked figures with skeletal hands poking out of the robes that look similar to mine just look less rotted. As I'm looking at them, they seem to notice me as well. Nearly 20 of them seemingly stop their flight instantly and stare in my direction. I'm getting a bit nervous, but I don't really know where to go. I can't exactly fly over open water with no destination. I'm like them, they shouldn't attack me, right? Eventually, nearly all of them are stopped looking at me. They start to slowly converge on me. I feel lightheaded as they get closer. No, not lightheaded, more like clouded, as if my own mind is being blocked off from my body. The creatures surrounding me had no light, not like every other creature before them. They were hollow, no light to be seen. Soon many of the creatures were close enough to touch me. They seemed to stop 2 or 3 feet away from me. One of the early ones to see me started drawing closer, reaching out its rotting hand towards my face. Just as it was about to touch me, my mind was at its limit. I wasn't able to think. The haze in my mind seemed to be translating to real life as my body started leaking black smoke. The creature that was about to touch me abruptly withdrew its hand. The smoke around me grew thicker and poured out more rapidly. It was that feeling I had earlier, the itch in the back of my mind. I need to feast. I'm hungry. My head turns to look at the tower. There are so many lights in there, so many darkly glowing lights. They look delicious. At the top there is a particularly dark one. there were around 10 lights at the top, all of them were bigger than the others below. Chapter 3, Feasting in the Tower. The top of the tower. I look down at my body to see I've grown, some of the black mist/fog rolling off of me is attaching to me and making me appear larger. The change in size makes all the creatures around me back away. As they back away they all lower their heads slightly as if showing they aren't a threat. My body slowly floats towards the tower. I phase through the massive stone doors and am greeted by the eyes of 10 or so people, guards I think. They look wary and scared. Geez, are those things supposed to even get that big? One of the guards jests at the other. I don't know, it must be the one Minister Fudge brought this morning, no wonder he was in such a hurry to leave. The other says with a wry smile. I ignore their talking, I'm too hungry to think straight, my mind is being dragged towards the large lights at the top. I slowly fly up the tower, phasing through the floors. As I do, I look into the cells I pass to see prisoners, each with dark lights and terrified faces. When I reach the top floor I hear a woman yelling, it must be one of the lights. The Dark Lord will save me. My love would not leave me here forever. The woman announces with gusto. Her yells honestly annoyed me, my instincts agree as my body immediately heads straight to her. She may not be the brightest of the lights but certainly is dark, I'll have time for the others. What am I thinking? This is messed up, and I going to eat this woman? My thoughts are cut off by her yells expressing her love, her stupid laughter. As I enter the cell I notice she isn't alone in the cell, there is a man there as well. Why are a man and a woman together in a cell, I wonder? But even while thinking my body doesn't stop, I approach her but she doesn't cower away like the other prisoners, instead she smiles. Come for another bite, hey? Come, I don't have all day. But just a nibble, all right. She smiles at me as if this has happened a million times before. The man next to her just stares at her with an exhausted face. Their faces change as I phase through the bars and the man looks worried. I put my gross grey flesh hands on her shoulders, I look deep into her eyes with my sockets. If I could see with more clarity I may say this woman is quite beautiful, if not a bit, really dirty. I open my mouth and start to feast, but it isn't like last time. Last time I feasted I slightly pulled the light to me through the man's mouth. Not this time it felt like I was tearing at the light, trying to engulf it in my darkness. The woman's face twisted and melded in a sick fashion, it looked like she was trying to scream but it remained silent. It felt good, hell better than last time. After only a few seconds of feaster her light was pulled from her core to her mouth and slowly came out of her body. The man with her in the cell seemed to notice and started to freak out. My vision allows me to see the fear in both of their eyes at the same time. Get away from her. He tries to push me but the second his hand touched me the shroud of mist around me starts to wrap around him. It's like a living creature with a mind of its own defending me against a lesser being. The black shroud forms around him and vanishes in less than a second and reveals the man unconscious on the ground, at least I think. I hope, unconscious. As the light neared my mouth the woman started to convulse with her skin paling, but I didn't stop there, I couldn't, I was starving. When the light finally entered me I see visions. Memories, her name was Bellatrix Black Lestrange. The memories were snapshots of her happiest moments. They included particularly heinous things, things I would never consider happy. For her happiest moments, they were not the typical things to be happy about, not that I know what typical things would be either. She had 2 days she would consider to be the happiest days of her life, the day her Dark Lord Voldemort accepted her as a so-called Death Eater. As well as the day she was convicted for having tortured the Longbottoms to the point of insanity. For her the conviction was a badge of honor, having completed a task given to her by her lord. After seeing her happiest moments I also got to see the most tragic experience. Coincidentally enough it featured the man in this cell. He was apparently her husband, she had been forced to marry him by her family, saying she needed to keep the Black family bloodline pure, unlike her failure cousin. I also got some miscellaneous pieces of her life but they were very fragmented. I could gather that she had attended the school that Quirrell teaches at, Hogwarts. She was placed in the Slytherin house, a house mainly consisting of the purebloods and half-bloods from prominent families. I also learned she was very talented in the dark arts even in school. From her memories I could gather quite a few spells, too bad I'm not a wizard. From her I learned only what she knew most, what Voldemort had taught her. The K***ling curse. The Cruciatus curse. The Imperious curse. And Broomless flight, which was a technique based on dementors. Funny enough. As the memories that are entering my mind start to end, I look down at her lifeless body and I feel a similar feeling I felt when I had K***led my father, relief. I am overwhelmed by this feeling. I know it's bad, but I feel relieved that the person IK*LLED completely deserved it. Now I feel less guilty about my desire to feast on everyone here, but K*ling still doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm using my lack of control as an excuse to murder. After standing there for a bit looking at her dead body, contemplating what I had done, I look around at the other lights on this floor of the tower. There was one, in particular, that was exceedingly dark. It was nearly a black light. What was the reason behind his light being so dark, and why did it look so delicious? I tried to hold myself back, but it was too alluring. I just had to get a taste of it. My body started flying towards the dark light, ignoring the unconscious body of Rodolphus Lestrange and the dead body of Bellatrix Black Lestrange. As I got to the cell with the dark light, a man was sitting on the floor huddled up. He was handsome with long hair and a trimmed beard. Comment. 5 comment. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 4, Heavy Heart. My mind goes hazy as I blankly stand in front of this man with a worn-out demeanor as he huddles close to the corner. As I stand floating, the tantalizing dark light in his soul draws me closer. Quickly I realize he hasn't even noticed my presence. Has he grown numb? The creatures around here like me? Dementors. I try to reach out to him with my thoughts, but the fog seems to be keeping me locked in this little section of my mind. It's excruciatingly hard to think of anything but food. I kneel down to his level, or at least my version of kneeling, and put my hand on his shoulder. With this he finally reacts. He slowly turns his head to face me, to look me directly in my sockets. His eyes look dead inside, no light to be seen. He lets out a small breath as he turns his head, his eyes peering into my sockets. As soon as he looks at me, I begin to feast, with no hesitation. He just looks too appetizing. He looks so beaten and broken, I honestly really want to stop. There is no way my body would let me do that. I can't control my hunger. It's like a completely separate part of me I can't rein in. As I tear away at the darkly lit light, I can see no visible changes to the man's face other than the warping caused by my feast. He just stares at me with blank dead eyes. God, I really don't want to be doing this. He appears almost bored as I feast. Only once the dark light reaches his mouth does he finally start to react. His eyes go wide as if not expecting me to go this far. He is strong. He somehow manages to raise his arms to grab my shoulders, but it means nothing. The moment his hands touch my shoulders, the shroud of fog devours his arms, and not even a second later the fog dissipates and his arms go limp. As his arms fall limp, I begin to see the first stoke of understanding pass through this man's eyes. He knows he will die. The light is nearly touching my mouth and he begins to convulse just like Bellatrix did. The only difference was he didn't show fear while knowing his fate. He is angry, furious even. His dead eyes return to life and he looks at me like he would tear my throat out if he could still use his arms. This guy has such a strong will. Why am I doing this? As I'm feasting, it's becoming easier to think. The more I think, the more I regret what I'm doing right now. This man obviously has a good reason to live. Once his light enters me, I feel full. I feel satiated, like everything I had eaten in my life was just a small ember to fire and this was a raging flame. I felt as though I could go my entire life without ever eating again and be satisfied. However, with this satisfaction, I was able to push back the darkness blocking my mind. Then came his memories. This man's name was Sirius Black, and I finally see why he had such a powerful reason to live. 6 names resounded in my head. They came in a scream rather than a gentle whisper like Bellatrix's. His memories stuck hard. There were plenty of gaps, but what I did remember was now engraved into my mind, for me to never forget. Perhaps this is his last hit he got against me. The first and possibly most important was Harry Potter, just a boy who should be a few years younger than I was when I died. He was someone Sirius must protect. This young man was probably one of the last, or rather only, people whom he could consider as family. The second was a man by the name of James Potter, Harry's father, and the man whom he had considered to be his true brother in every sense of the word. His parents had taken him in when Sirius ran away from his evil and arrogant family. He even attended Hogwarts with him, getting sorted into the Gryffindor house, breaking the long tradition of their family being the proud Slytherin. The third was a woman named Lily J. Evans Potter, the wife and good friend whom he believed to be as close as a real sister. She was Harry's mother and the one who put a charm on Harry so powerful that even the Dark Lord couldn't touch him. The fourth was Remus Lupin, a friend to both James and Sirius, someone who was cursed with lycanthropy but someone he saw as a brother nonetheless. The fifth was his younger brother Regulus Black. Although he was a Death Eater, they got along in their younger years. He was K*LLED though, as he tried to leave the Death Eaters. No one leaves the Death Eaters alive. The last was an immense hatred of a fire that burned like the flames of Surtur, an eternal hatred that could devour its target and still never be satiated. The man's name was Peter Pettigrew, an animagus, a close friend, and the one who betrayed the man he saw as a brother, James Potter. He was the one who told Voldemort the Dark Lord where to find James and Lily, the secret that Frank and Alice Longbottom had been driven to insanity to protect. I wasn't able to see as much about him compared to the others since it was all blinded by his hatred. I saw nearly all of his memories related to his friends and family, especially the bad, as well as the good. Unlike Bellatrix, I was able to see through a lot of his time at Hogwarts. I learned much about potions, legilimency, occlumency, and more basic spells. I saw the times he failed tests, the times he succeeded where he expected to fail. I saw his love for his family fade, I saw the anger towards his family grow, I saw his brotherhood with Lupin, Peter, and James form. I saw the happiness he got from watching Severus Snape and James compete. I saw the anger, agony, and depression he had from staying locked up for nearly 9 years unable to help Harry grow up and have a good home. I would be lying if I said his memories didn't deeply affect me. Harry Potter had everything I had ever wanted growing up, loving parents. Yet this wondrous thing was stolen from him by that man. Voldemort. Not only that, his father was betrayed by someone he and Sirius had considered a friend, a brother. Peter Pettigrew. All these feelings made me feel angry, powerless, and bitter with a tinge of melancholy. But most of all I felt regret. I had just *LLED, an innocent man who had dreams of one day being free and setting the world straight about his name. A man who wanted to live to someday see the boy he thought a nephew grow strong and most of all, safe. After eating Sirius's light, I no longer feel the need to feast. I can now control my body again. But I still don't move. I just stand there, floating above the body of someone whom I would consider a good man, someone I had murdered. If I could I would cry, but nothing came from my sockets. I just stood there frozen. The fog around me calmed down and was merely a slow roll at this point. I can hear the dementors outside. They are screaming, wailing. It feels like they are crying for this man. I know they aren't, but I would like to think they are. Chapter 5, A Moth to the Flame. I can't just leave Sirius's body here. I started to pick up his body, but I instinctively grab him in my shroud of fog instead. When the fog clears, his body is gone. I know I was somehow carrying him in my shroud. Not that strange in a world of magic, I guess. Now that my head is clear, I take a better look around. The cells are honestly horrible. Inside each cell is 1 or 2 cots and a bucket, that's it. In the cell catty corner from me I can see Rodolphus Lestrange kneeling over Bellatrix's body, caressing her face with a sad look in his eyes. Not that I care, such people do not deserve sympathy, for all the people they have *LLED and the ones they have tortured. Perhaps my time in the darkness has warped my thoughts. I think to myself before shaking off such scary thoughts. I look down, observing all the lights of the now presumed souls, and I notice something strange. I didn't notice earlier with Sirius's soul distracting me and clouding my judgment. But underneath the tower, like very far underneath, a few hundred meters, there was a light that looked completely different from every light I have seen up until this point. There was a light that had a defined shape, not just a circular blob. It was like a small fire, and it was pure white. Unlike every other soul around, it had no darkness to it. It was just a white flame with a slight flicker to it every so often. It honestly didn't look like it tastes any good. I don't know why I thought that. Right now I need to get off this island and figure out how to end my hunger once and for all. I don't want to *LL another innocent, ever. But something hidden beneath a magical prison could be helpful, no? I decide it won't take that much time, so I decided to take a look. It takes a while to get there since it is an odd feeling trying to get used to moving in 360 degrees in all directions rather than just flat ground. I did it so naturally when I didn't have control, but trying it without being driven by instinct was pretty disorientating. When I get below the tower I am greeted by a giant room with no entrance or exits. I suppose they wanted it to be a secret. But the odd thing is that the room is completely devoid of life, not even an insect. I guess that's not true, there are plants. The room is probably around half the length and width of the island, nearly 100 meters by 50 ish meters. Only about a 15 meter by 10 meter section was like an actual room with a desk, beakers, what looked to be a restrainment table, an actual bed, medical tools, plants, and a training dummy. The rest of the room is just rows upon rows of bookshelves lined with books, parchments, and rolled up scrolls. The weirdest part of all of this is the plants that should very much be dead, are still alive and green as ever, as well as the bookshelves are completely dust-free. I notice that the flame-like soul is coming from an object on the desk. It looked like a locket, I didn't notice before, but there are actually quite a few flame-like souls, 4 to be exact. The locket was by far the biggest. There was also a book, a ring, and a set of robes, all of which had a bright white flame, each smaller than the next. I decide it's best not to do anything to them at the moment, but I do pick up the book to read since the front cover is labeled The Diary of Sid Zirk. Year 1422 Day September the 2nd. Today I will begin to write a diary as suggested by a professor. Yesterday was the day I joined Hogwarts. I was sorted into Ravenclaw. I was told Ravenclaw is for those who enjoy studying. I can hold this true to say I very well believe I am suited to be here. I, however, hold some reservations as I wish to be sorted into Slytherin since I feel like I am too noble to be in a house with Muggleborn and the sort. Honestly, I regret having Muggles as parents. It makes me retch every time I think of the filthy Muggles. Year 1425 Day January the 23rd. Although the morning classes were not that great, I had the most wondrous thing happen in my defense against the dark arts class today. The professor brought in a creature he called a dementor. It was beautiful. It nearly sucked out my deskmate's soul in the short time it was free. I wish it would have been a magnificent sight to see how the soul leaves a body and enters the dementor. The professor said that they cannot be K***led, not even really injured, they can only be suppressed with the power of a patroness. It is just absolutely fascinating. Apparently, the information on these creatures is heavily classified, however we were given special permission from the ministry. This was due to one being found in the Forbidden Forest. So the teachers began to teach us all patroness charms to fend them off. Why must we fear them? Year 1502 Day December the 2nd. Even though my experiments have yielded great success, I am forced to stop for the time being as the ministry is starting to notice the missing people. The Dementors are showing a slight bit of growth, especially the early two, my mother and father. Is it because they are the only Muggles? Or merely because they are older? They have been showing signs that they may be able to form full sentences soon, although they do not remember anything from their past lives. I believe with time I can make them gain clarity. Year 1512 Day August the 3rd. Maybe this is for the best? I have found a small island in the North Sea. I plan to make this my home until I finally gain immortality. I am merely 93, the prime of my life. I can rest easy. With how close I am to finding the path to true immortality, I have nothing to fear. Year 1547 Day Unknown. Today I caught the 800th sailor to pass by these waters. The creation of the Dementors is near 100% success rate and the tower is nearly full. Slowly torturing someone to death over the course of a year while draining their vitality has shown a 98% success rate since implementation 10 years ago. Breaking the mind, body, and spirit of the subject is absolutely crucial. My mother and father's Dementors have stopped gaining intelligence. No matter how much I try and teach them, they never retain any of the critical information, merely the baseline simple things. They can take nothing more than simple conversations and words. I have already developed a way that I think will work. For Dementors to turn human again, I just need more time. I hypothesize that to convert a Dementor into a human you need to use the soul of a mandrake. I have found the properties that turn a man into a magical beast can be found in the soul of a mandrake. Since the mandrake transforms a man into the shape of their soul's inner beast with only the power of one leaf, it is very well possible that the soul can turn a beast into a man. I would call them anti-animagus. I need to think of a better name. In the meantime, I have created 7 Horcrux using the lives of the sailors to stretch myself into my beloved items. I will succeed in getting true immortality, not the beastly form the Horcrux will leave me in. Although after creating the Horcrux I seem more temperamental, getting easily angered at my work. I never used to get angry. Year 1550 Day Unknown. I did it. I created an anti-animagus. They refused to devour the soul of anything other than a human, so I decided to force the matter. I left one of the sailors' Dementors in a small room with enchanted walls, so it wouldn't be able to phase through. The only thing I left with it was a single mandrake that would be taken care of by an enchanted spout. It took 3 years of starving the cursed Dementor, but it finally gave in and ate the mandrake. I was right all along. The anti-animagus has no soul, however, and it just stands there never tiring. It took the shape of the sailor that IK***led to make the Dementor. It is currently unstable and will transform in and out of its Dementor state seemingly randomly. However, I believe that they can create any human form they want. The Dementor only chose his old form because that is what the latent consciousness in the Dementor remembered. I believe it is time I try some self-experiments. I can already feel my power is starting to grow a bit rugged and less refined than it used to be, a show of age I suppose. Year point 1552. The first trial of creating a dementor of myself was a complete failure. I used an old blood ritual to create a second body for myself and place one of the Horcrux pieces inside. This turned out to be a colossal failure even though it is separate from my main soul and only used the smallest piece of my soul. It still left a scar on all pieces of my soul and crushed the piece I used. This left me unconscious for what seemed like a lifetime, but it couldn't have been that long considering only my skin paled to a ghastly degree and my tongue died out. My further attempts will be using the already created dementors as a baseline rather than trying to convert myself. Year unknown. It took 2 attempts but I successfully implanted a piece of my soul into a dementor. I even successfully got it to turn into an anti-animagus. It was like looking into a mirror. Despite the success, I was not able to make the soul retain the concussions while being in the anti-animagus state. Recently my magic has waned enough that the enchantments around the island broke. They were extremely powerful hexes and enchantments, so it is understandable that I couldn't hold them anymore. I will start preparing to make more tests. 2 days after the last entry. The ministry has shown up on the island. I can't do anything about it. I am too weak now. I know they cannot find this secret room, so this is where I will stay. Listening in on their conversations, it seems like they have linked me with the wizards disappearing from back in my younger days. They call me Echrisdes. It's funny, a name I made up on a whim to throw off the ministry is now known as one of the most infamous Muggle murder and wizard K***lers. Since I have to speed up plans, I will try using my main soul. If this doesn't work, I hope my Horcruxes somehow manage to keep my conscience. I do not know. I did it. I managed to turn myself into an anti-animagus, but something is wrong. I think I messed up when forming my body. I was so obsessed with creating my ideal body that I forgot to create a proper magic core. In my old age, my mind was not sharp enough to keep up the rapid creation of my body and I got caught up in the small details. My soul is too powerful for this body. All the magical energy that has flowed through my body all these years has made my soul quite powerful. This body is unable to contain it with its barely better than a normal Muggle's magic core. It burns. It feels like the place my magical core is supposed to be is on fire. My Horcruxes. I can't feel the soul's connection to them anymore. I messed up. It hurts. Is this how they felt? That's where the diary ends. I don't know how I feel about this. It seems like a path to freedom of this form was dropped into my hands, but am I even able to form a body properly? I don't really know much about magic except the thoughts of Sirius and the Death Eater Bellatrix. Sirius knew little to nothing about the dark arts, save for what was available in his parents' library, and Bellatrix didn't even bother learning anything other than hexes and curses, with the majority of her time on offensive magics. I turned to face the hundreds of bookshelves behind me. I guess it's time to get to reading. Chapter 6, Wings to Heaven. I will admit I lost track of time. If I had to guess, 3 months have gone by. There are so many books in this room and so many of them are so incredibly interesting. As someone who lived as a Muggle my entire life, reading about magic was truly mesmerizing. I wish I could have slipped my father a few drops of truth serum. Maybe then I could have been adopted by a loving family while he rotted in a place like this, Azkaban. I feel a bit of rage emerge in my heart briefly, but I quickly smother it before the darkness creeps up on me. On the subject of dementors, I learned that those lights I see are indeed souls, and the darkness in the light is the sadness and tragedy that the person has experienced in life. That's probably why Sirius had such a dark section of his soul. He had spent nearly a fourth of his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. I have learned that in Sid's time, ritual magic was considered a regular thing that would be used commonly in the wizarding world. This contradicts what I saw in Sirius's memories quite a bit, as I don't think he had ever seen a ritual performed in his entire life. Sid's study of dementors put him miles ahead of the wizarding community in many ways, even ahead of what modern magic was. Sid had found that every wizard had a magical core. The core is what housed your soul and what made magic flow. The core is merely a regulator, and without it, a person cannot use magic, hence why he believed Muggles were inferior creatures. They are just faulty wizards without cores. I mean, he is right and wrong at the same time. They are different, but we are all humans in the end. He theorized that the magical core was similar to both a muscle and an organ. It would grow in your body, and once it reached sufficient size to grow a soul, you could start to use magic. He believed that a soul would grow in tandem with the strength of a wizard, which was why he was so powerful. Constant and drastic use of magic would invigorate his core, making it grow. The core is an invisible membrane that forms around the soul and allows magic to flow in, out, and around the body. A soul's natural strength would often dictate how long they would take to form a core, or if they could even do it at all. Forming my core while creating my body would prove to be the biggest hurdle through all of this. How do I form something that is invisible? I supposed this is why Sid failed and his soul burnt out. Maybe he was too focused on his looks. I jest to myself. The soul is kept in the head, more specifically where your third eye would be. This is probably why legilimency and occlumency go through the mind. Little did everyone know they were actually using a form of soul magic all this time. Once I create my body I will be able to change my age at will, but once I create my features such as build height and facial features. Since I want to spend as much time as possible creating my core, I will use my body and face from when I was alive. When I was 16 I was 5 feet 11 inches with a sharp jawline, blonde hair, and green eyes. So I can assume what my older self will look like and already know how my younger self looks. Perhaps the magic will do the work for me, I can only hope. Asterisk another month, or so. Later asterisk. I have finished preparations to create my body. I suppose now is better than any, especially since I need to hurry up and get back to England. My plans may take a while, and I'm not sure on the details. Who needs details when you're immortal, I grab one of the mandrakes from the pots and as I pick it up it begins to scream. It is easily the most annoying sound I have heard in my life, or death. As I stare at it I notice that its soul is absolutely tiny. I guess you wouldn't expect anything more from a plant. Unlike human souls it isn't bright or dark, it's more like transparent, that if I wasn't looking for it I would never find it. No wonder dementors don't eat anything other than humans. Humans are like walking lighthouses compared to these things. I quickly tear it from its body and into mine. The feasting process is way faster on a mandrake than human, it's like there is no resistance to my yanking on its soul. As I eat it I can feel my body shifting. I would imagine this would hurt greatly if I could actually feel anything, that is. I'm sure my current body looks like a mash of grey flesh slowly forming into the shape of a human. Just as Sid instructed so kindly, I first form my nervous system, then bones, then veins, the organs, then muscles, and finally little pockets of fat where the body needs. After all the other inside things are created I create my brain, the only thing that is far too complex for me to make myself. I use my imagination and let magic take the reins, and just as magic does the brain is made as I would expect. As I'm molding my outward form a thought comes to mind, and the lush blonde hair forming on my head fades darker, eventually becoming black. I have succeeded in making my body like it was when I died. I may have given myself ABS, what can you expect? I always wanted them, but if my father ever found out I was working out, death may have been a better option. As I start to mold my core I followed what Sid had written down to do to the letter. I use magical power from the souls I've eaten to weave a net around my soul. I repeated this process hundreds of times until I have formed a solidish ball around my soul. As I feel my body start to solidify I make sure everything is correct. As far as I see I've done everything correctly, the only small issue is my skin is paler than intended. Those months spent studying anatomy and practical soul magic really paid off. My body aches, but at least I can feel that means I properly made the nerves. I wonder if I need to eat or drink, or use the bathroom. I guess I'll find out if I get hungry. I walk over and lay down on the cot. My tired body seems to sink into the well-made quilt. The things you take for granted when you can always feel. The months, year, of being an unfeeling creature has given me a new appreciation for the softer things in life. As I lay there I close my eyes and for the first time in my new life, I fall asleep. That night, I dreamed through Sirius's memories. I was Sirius watching James Potter and Severus Snape duel for the third time that week. They both drew their wands and cast as fast as they could. Stupefy! Snape yelled with a wave of magical energy that quickly flew from his wand. Protego! Expelliarmus! James yelled, chaining two spells together. A semi-transparent barrier formed in front of him blocking Snape's spell and almost simultaneously sending Snape's wand flying. The win goes to James. Sirius, say. Ha, good fight, 16 wins to 9 wins, you won't catch up like that, Mr. Prince, James says with a smug smile. Snape merely scoffs while picking up his wand and abruptly leaves. James and I smile at his parting figure. What a moody kid, I mumble to James. We are the same age. He laughs. The world slow fades as my vision of the memory dims. I wake up feeling refreshed like I hadn't slept in years. Man, it feels nice to have a real body. After I get up I immediately start to train to see what I can and can't do. Another month passes. I have learned many things through trial and error, like for instance the powers I retain while in my human form, which to be honest are freaking awesome. I have come to learn that knowing spells and being able to cast spells are very different. I know I'm new but it honestly feels hopeless. I keep my shroud of fog which should be pretty strong and I can call on it at will. Wandless and broomless flight, I can surround myself in my fog and carry myself in it. Though I would rather just shift back into dementor form since I don't have to fear falling while I'm a dementor. I can't see souls with my naked eye, however if I close my eyes and concentrate I can see all the souls around me as I would in dementor form. Another use for my cloak is that I can shroud myself in it and I can step through solid objects. I suppose I could use to hide as well, but why would I need that? Over the course of this month, I haven't felt the need to eat or drink once, but I did steal food from the guards area a few times. Tastes like shit. I have learned a few spells and I'm particularly talented in operating, maybe it's my lack of fear, but it feels freeing. I have also learned my weakness as well. Transfiguration, my imagination is awful, I got lucky making my body, that's for sure. My magical core is about as mature as someone in their mid-40s with decent talent, so I'm much stronger than a student of Hogwarts but not that close to a professor yet. I guess that my core is maturing at a similar speed to a very talented student, but since I had a higher starting point I've gotten quite ahead of myself. Alright, I think it's time. I step in front of the mirror, I stole it from the guards a few weeks ago. I look at my handsome appearance and slowly manipulate it. I grow younger and younger in both build and face until I finally appear to be around 10 or 11 years old. I pull out the wand I took from Sid's desk and apparate the furthest I've ever gone. The place of some of Sirius's worst memories, the hidden Black Manor. Chapter 7, Setting the Plan. At this point, I have laid out a plan to myself as to how I will proceed with my life. Since I'm immortal there is no reason to be stingy, right? The Fidelius charm was transferred to me when I consumed Sirius's soul, so I know exactly where the manor is. From here I will use Sirius Black's memories to inherit the Black Manor and assets. This is because I don't want to go to Hogwarts as a Muggle orphan and it's the best I could come up with on the spot. Also, I want to make it up to Sirius by protecting those close to him, the ones he cannot protect anymore, because I ate his soul. I need a wand. Sid's wand doesn't suit me and makes it feel like I'm fighting the wand just to cast anything. Once I inherit everything it should be simple enough. Currently the house has no heir and the only one alive should be Sirius's mother, so Grandma? According to Sirius's memories he was always the favorite child. Even when he was the shame of the family they merely removed him from the tapestry and didn't remove his place as heir. His position was even more solidified when his younger brother passed. I will need to get in contact with Andromeda Black Tonks, the only blood relative Sirius actually cared about. Good thing Sirius had an enchanted two-way mirror to get into contact with her in case something went wrong, too bad he couldn't retrieve it before he got arrested. Last but probably the most pressing is I need to bury Sirius. I want to bury him in Godric's Hollow with the Potters but I honestly don't know where that is. Sorry for being born an American, I may not have been much into geography in my last life but Godric's Hollow sounds like a made-up name. Then again I guess every word is made up, hey? As I apparate in front of the Black Manor I notice it is shabbier than what Sirius remembered. It looks like some run-down apartment buildings to be honest. Although I'm sure like most things in this part of London it must have been beautiful back in the day. I also remember this isn't the only manor of Black, this is just the ancestral home. I pull out Sid's wand and with a flick, something amazing happens, the bricks begin shifting over and folding on themselves. Eventually, it reveals a narrow corridor, as I start walking in it opens up to a large foyer. Stepping inside is exactly as in Sirius's memories. The only real change is there is now a large portrait hanging in the main hall with a large cloth over it. Tending to the large cloth tarp there is an ugly house elf staring at me. Hello, you must be Creaker, father mentioned you in the letter. I greet him with a smile and a shameless lie. Creaker does not know this one, speak who are you? Creaker chantlessly oxyos my wand into his hand and points it at me. Calm down, father said to show this to you and it would be fine. I pull out Sirius's black family ring and show it to Creaker. Creaker looks visibly shocked but soon goes back to his normal grumpy look. Creaker lives to serve the noble house of Black. Creaker says with a small bow of his head. I nod safe with the knowledge that those with the family ring are blood of the Black even if they really aren't. Creaker would like to know young master's name if you would. I smile at his sudden change of attitude. Just as Sirius remembers him. My name is Soren, Soren Black. After being escorted around the manor a few times and familiarizing myself better with the changes, my final stop is Sirius's room. The room is exactly as Sirius had left it, slightly messy with posters of half-naked biker chicks on the walls. This room reeks of rebellious teen. They must have expected him to come back, the sad thought weighs on my mind. I quickly peek out of the room. Kriaker, where is grandmother? I heard she was still around. Kriaker's ugly face turns even uglier as he looks down. Lord Black regrets to inform young master that the madam passed away years ago. My fist tightens as I round the door again to hide my expression. I have mixed feelings as I don't know which are my own. It's good that a racist terrorist is dead, but he was still my benefactor's mother. I shake off my feelings and continue snooping around the room. After scouring through a few drawers, I finally find the mirror hidden underneath some clothes. But, how do I use it? I set it on the desk while looking around Sirius's room for a hint or something. There was nothing like this in Sid's time, or at least I couldn't find anything like it in the books. As I pick the mirror again, I see a face staring back at me. Ah! I get startled by the face staring back on the bed, the face it looked exactly like Bellatrix. Ha ha ha! The lady in the mirror roars with laughter at my stumble. My face grows red as I can hear laughing coming from the mirror. I quickly pick the mirror back up and get a better look at the laughing woman. She does indeed look almost exactly like Bellatrix, except her jawline is a bit softer, making her look much kinder. Also, her eyes are less sharp without that hard stare Bellatrix had. I give my best smile. You are Auntie Andromeda, I suppose. I'm sure it's awkward as I can feel I haven't controlled my expression in a long time. Auntie. She looks at me curiously. And who would you be to call me Auntie? She looks at me with a wide smile. She is clearly treating me like a child. I am a child right now, but still. I'm Soren Black, son of Sirius Black and the new head of the Black family. I try to look as confident as I can while I say this. She giggles, causing my face to heat up again. I didn't know Sirius had a son, and I didn't know someone so young could be the head of a family. This causes me to blush quite a bit. I've never had an interaction like this. I haven't had many interactions in my life. I show her the ring as I speak my piece. Father hid mother and me in America to protect us, but mother passed away when I was only 3, so I've lived in an orphanage until now. But a week ago I got a letter from my father telling me about the world of magic and that I should contact you for help. She looks to be deep in thought. That explains your weird accent. So you're telling me that while everyone was hiding from the Dark Lord, my foolish cousin ran off to America and had a kid? Yes. Yeah, that does indeed sound like Sirius. Where are you now? I'm in the Black Manor with Kriaker. He is currently setting up a room for me. She looks kinda mad at me when I say that. No, I'm not letting a young boy stay in such a big house by himself. I'm coming over now. But I have Kriaker with me, I say, trying to smile. That's even worse, that racist little house elf should not be allowed to influence you. She had a good point, Kriaker is indeed super racist. If any of Sirius's memories are good reference, he is just like his masters. I'm about to say something, but her figure disappears from the mirror before I can speak. Not even a few seconds later I hear the shifting of bricks opening the front door, so I go downstairs to greet her. As I get downstairs I see the beautiful woman from the mirror walking towards me with a big smile on her face. Hello Auntie, I say with a broad smile. As she approaches me she lowers herself to my eye level. Hello, Soren. She pulls me into a hug and softly strokes my back. As she hugs me I start to get emotional, tears start falling and I get choked up. This woman who had never even met me didn't even suspect I was lying to her. For someone as love-deprived as me, this was too much. I had never been hugged by a mother figure, hell I can't remember ever being hugged. Perhaps it was my years spent in the darkness. Maybe the lack of love shown to me in my life. But this feeling welling up in my chest was new, sweet, and addicting. Is this what the love of a parent is like? After a few more seconds I begin to think to myself, was I always this childish? As she pulled back from the hug with her hands on my shoulders she saw my face covered in tears. She used her thumb to wipe away my tears and pulled me into another hug, this time tighter. Don't worry honey, you are not alone anymore. These words made me cry even harder. I didn't even know that I needed to hear them. After we separated she told me I would be coming to live with her. At first I was against it, but she insisted, and I had always wanted a family even if it was built on a lie. She told me how everything was legally still my father's, Sirius's, until I turned 17, since that was adulthood in the wizarding world. Their house was a quaint 2-story house with 4 bedrooms. It looked comfortable with a rather large field behind it and a decent-sized front yard. At first, Uncle Tonks was against me living with them, saying we can't house the son of a criminal, but Auntie Andromeda quickly changed his tune. Auntie Andromeda also explained that she had a daughter named Nymphadora. Of course, I knew that, but I let her brag about her daughter. She extremely proud of her, saying that she was particularly talented in combat magic and how she aspired to be an Auror since she was just a child. Maybe it was the influence of Sirius's soul, or maybe it was the fact that she was the first in my life to show me love. I will protect this woman. No. This family. Chapter 8, Strapped for Gold. These months I have spent in the Tonks household were the happiest days I have had in this life or the last. To say I have grown attached to Andromeda, I've come to see her as the mother I never had. I also learned that if I leer into someone's third eye as I touch them, I can see some of their darkest tragedies. The first time it happened with Andromeda, it scared me. It has also given me a new respect for her. The hardships she went through after her family disowned her were heartbreaking. They only added fuel to my hate of the elitist purebloods. Not that I needed any more reason to dislike them. During this time Nymphadora, aka Dora, had graduated from Hogwarts. Auntie hadn't told Dora about me. So when we showed up and she saw me walking with her parents, she had thought I was an illegitimate child. It was fun watching Uncle Ted, Edward, explain that I wasn't a child out of wedlock but instead her cousin. She really dislikes being called Dora, but she has given me special permission. I think she took to me almost as fast as Auntie did. I had also found Godric's Hollow. I snuck away and took the night bus there. I buried Sirius next to the combined grave of Lily and James Potter. I'm sure no one in the village will care about a grave being added to the corner of a sparsely populated cemetery. No one even came out of their houses to see what I was doing, only a stray glance from a window. Sis Dora was nice. She let me use her wand to practice magic, not that I really needed it. I had learned a lot of simple stuff myself. She was currently studying for her mastery in defense against the dark arts. She said that's her first step to becoming a great Auror. She is clumsy, so I'm not sure how she'll get there, but with how hard she works I'm positive she will get there eventually. I always nagged Andromeda to let me go get a wand from Ollivanders, but she always said we would go and get it when my invitation to Hogwarts came in. I constantly complained, but she heard none of my words. Lucky now, that day was today. When I make my way downstairs from my room, I see both Dora and Andromeda sitting at the table smiling at me. Andromeda was holding an old-fashioned letter in her hand with a wax seal on it. The seal itself is really complex and I can't tell what it is from across the room. Soren, come and get your mail. Auntie waves the letter at me. I grab the letter from her hands and read it. To Soren Black, 431, Willows Drive, Appleby. The inside reads: Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Sork, CHF Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confeet of Wizards. Dear Mr. Soren Black, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. The term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. I unfold it and the listed equipment and books are as written. Uniform. 1.3 sets of plain work robes, black. 2.1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear. 3.1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. 4.1 winter cloak, black, with silver fastenings. Books. The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1, by Miranda Goshawk. A History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot. Magical Theory by Adalbert Waffling. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Phil Littespore. Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsenius Jigger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. Equipment. 1 wand. 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2. 1 set glass or crystal phials. 1 telescope. 1 set brass scales. Students may also bring an owl or a cat or a toad. That's a lot of stuff. How am I going to pay for it all? I look at Andromeda. I don't have rights to the Black family fortune until I'm 17. I don't wanna ask for you to pay. Don't worry, you may not have access to the Black family fortune, but you can get your father's. She winks at me. I know where he liked to hide his valuables. We apparate, she brings us, to the Black Manor and we head to Sirius's room. Andromeda ignores Kriaker's yells telling her she can't be there. Andromeda walks up to the biggest poster in the room. It's of a nearly naked woman sucking a lollipop, wearing only a leather bikini and a tight-fitting leather jacket that doesn't even cover her entire chest. Andromeda looked at me with a wry smile. Your father really liked Muggle culture. I have a stupid smile on my face staring at the poster. I can appreciate that sort of culture as well. This earns me a quick smack to the side of my head. I rub my head while still keeping my eyes on the culture. She aims her wand at the poster and speaks slowly. Alohomora. The poster and wall behind it swing open into a hidden room. I guess there are more holes in the memories I got from Sirius than I thought. The hidden room is almost empty except for a small wooden box sitting in the middle of it. Auntie steps forward and opens the box with me close behind. Inside the box was a picture of Sirius Black stand next to a woman smiling and a single golden key. Auntie stares at the picture for a second then looks at me. Your mother? She asks gesturing to the picture. Her eyes focus on the woman's large culture. I stay silent because I have no idea what to say in this situation. The woman in the picture was a Muggle woman Sirius met in a biker bar while traveling, never anything serious. Why did he store a picture of her? Auntie takes my silence as an affirmation. I guess it's for the best. I put my head down not wanting to meet Auntie's eyes. After that, we head to Gringotts. This time we apparate to a brick wall in an alleyway I don't recognize. It is frowned upon to apparate into Diagon Alley, so I guess this was the closest entrance. She must remember from her childhood. From Sirius's memories, I know Auntie used to be a rebellious teen who would sneak out often with her sisters. I'm pulled from my memories as the wall begins to fold in on itself, similar to what happens at the Black family manor. Once the wall opens, it reveals stairs up towards a busy street. Diagon Alley. The street in front of Gringotts is painfully crowded, and it only gets worse on the inside. There are massive lines everywhere, but the seemingly endless number of tellers makes it bearable. When we make our way to the front, we are greeted by a goblin who looks like he's been sitting there for years with no break. He looks up at Auntie with his haggard face. What are you here for today? We are here to make a withdrawal for him. She nods her head at me. He stands up in his high seat to peer over the counter at me. Vault number 688. He scoffs in agreement, then looks down at his paper. His eyebrows raise. The owner of the vault is a Sirius Black. This time I speak up. Yes sir, that's my father. Still standing in his chair looking at me. Proof of identification. I show him Sirius's ring. He looks surprised but simply nods, then looks at Auntie again. Key. She hands him the key and he starts walking away with us following close behind. He slides open a metal barred door leading to a rocky abyss. A bit down the paved rock path we get into a cart in what seems to be a mining cave, but the cart is wider, obviously meant for people. The further the cart goes down, the less well built is, but at the same time newer looking. As we hit the 400 section, Auntie starts giving mindful exposition. Gringotts is the most secure place in the wizarding world, even more secure than Hogwarts. They take the defense of this place so seriously that around the 700 level vaults you can hear the roar of the dragon they keep. Your father was lucky to get a vault this deep. He insisted he got a freshly built one near the Potters. He was always good at being stubborn. The goblin scoffs with a smile on his face, obviously happy at her praise of Gringotts. As we arrive in front of Vault 688, we stop on a dime and the goblin echoes Vault number 688. As he steps out of the cart, he turns around. Watch your step, lamp please. I hand him the lamp as I observe the vaults closer. The vaults themselves are just massive circular steel doors with the number written in the middle and large handles on one side. The goblin walks up to the door and hands me the lamp. As I take the lamp back, he pulls out my key and in a goblin height lock inserts it. The giant door unlatches and Auntie opens it for me. Inside the vault is a small mountain of galleons. My mouth drops. Sirius was never one for greed, so I assumed he wasn't very wealthy. I was wrong. Auntie looks at me with an entertained smile. According to the goblin, it's 52,334 galleons. Don't be too surprised, when you inherit the Black family fortune that's more around 2 million gallons. That vault is 711, just down the hall. How much should I take? I probably look nervous. Little did I know I inadvertently made myself rich. Oh, around 2,000 would be enough for your year at Hogwarts. If you need more you can always come back during a break. She smiles at me nonchalantly after mentioning such a ludicrous amount of money. Although Auntie and Uncle Ted aren't incredibly poor, they are not well off by any means. I want to offer help, but I know she won't accept it. I shake my head as I step inside. I pull out my moleskin pouch and start piling the coins in. After what I think is around 2,000 I stop piling them in and tell the goblin I'm done. The goblin nods, taking his job seriously, and steps in front of me. With a flick of his wand, the door closes again, letting off a white light that indicates that it is locked once again. With that, he hands me my key and escorts us back. Chapter 9, A Trip in Diagon Alley. After stopping at the bank, we head back up and head towards Flourish and Blots, since getting the books should be the fastest. Then comes Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions, as well as Wiseacre's wizarding equipment for the robes, hat, cloak, gloves, crystal files, a telescope, and a set brass scales. Then came Potage's cauldron shop for the cauldron, of course. Conveniently it is right next to Ollivander's and Aeolip's Owl Emporium. Next, we went to Aeolip's because I wanted to save the wand for last. Inside there were a ton of different owls, all different colors and various shapes, as varied as owls get, I mean. I ended up buying a grey screech owl since it seemed to give me a curious nod when I looked at it. It was a light greyish-brown with feathers on its head that made it look like it had huge eyebrows and was always angry. I am still pending on the name. Finally, it was time to go to Ollivander's. I could, at last, get a wand that would suit me properly. As I walk in, the shop is seemingly empty. Auntie told me to go in myself, that it was better if I didn't have anyone to influence my decision. Looking down the rows of shelves, it is littered with wands. I see an old man curiously looking in the shelves, picking out wands and moving them. The door chime rang, but he seems to have been too focused. "Excuse me." I call out, getting his attention. His head snaps to me in a slightly creepy fashion. Yes, sorry, I was so engrossed in work I didn't hear the bell ring. "Here for your first wand, I suppose." "Yup," I smile at him. He looks at me up and down, taking a long look at my right arm. "Dominant arm, please." I nod as I hold out my right arm. From seemingly nowhere he pulls out a measuring tape. He quickly takes measurements of my arm from shoulder to fingertips, then nods. Before he even says anything more to me, he walks to a shelf in the far left aisle, shuffling through it with his eyes quickly. After only a few seconds he picks out one seemingly randomly. He carefully takes the wand out of the box and hands it over to me. "Here you go, boy, try it out." I take the wand and give it a wave at the bell on the desk. The bell doesn't make a sound but cracks. "Well, that certainly isn't it," he says as he takes the wand from me. He walks back to the shelves and grabs another one. Maybe this will work. 11 inches, English oak, with a dragon heartstring core. He hands me the new wand. I flick my wrist again and the same thing occurs. The bell gains another crack. "A tricky customer, I see. Shall we try different woods?" He goes back to grab another. This happens 54 times, trust me, I counted. After the 54th try the bell finally broke. "I'm sorry sir, I didn't mean to break it." "It's fine, I have a load of them in back, it happens more often than you think." He pauses in thought. "Tell me, boy, have you ever witnessed the death of someone?" he asks in a near whisper. I don't reply, I just give a small nod. "Then I will be right back." He takes off in a fast walk towards the back of the shop and into the back room. I sigh as he disappears. Is it because I'm not a real human that the wands don't like me? I become a bit depressed thinking about the possibility of me not having a perfect fit. After maybe a minute or two he comes out again holding a wand box, but this one is black with intricate golden inlays. A far better case than every one of the old worn boxes the other wands are in. Fancy box for a wand, I think. He sets the box carefully on the desk and opens it slowly, with both hands. The wand itself is pure black. The handle is also black, but the golden inlays on the handle extending to the bottom of the wand. The inlays look identical to what is on the box, golden skeletal wings. My eyebrows perk up as he takes the wand out carefully and presents it to me with both hands. This wand seems longer than the ones he has given me before. As I take it into my hand, it feels like putting on a perfectly fitting glove. My power runs into the wand and circulates back to me naturally with me even willing it. I feel the darkness in the back of my mind soothe a bit and retreat further. It felt as though my magic that had been wildly flowing in my body was now a complete loop. I close my eyes, enjoying the control over the darkness before a smile creeps on my face. "This feels perfect," I exclaim, but Ollivander has no reaction. He just stares at me looking very serious. "Try it out," he says, his voice sounds dry. I point at the bell hanging on the door and flick my wrist again. This time the bell makes a harmonious chime. Ollivander's face is still hard, no longer staring at me or the wand but just out into space. Excuse me, Mr. Ollivander, I'll take this on please, I say, hoping to get out while this old man is still sane. He seeming snaps out of his 1,000-yard stare and looks back at me with a less stressed out face. Boy, let me tell you a story. There was once a young wand maker who came from a long line of wand makers. He was an impressionable lad that wanted to make a wand so grand his name would live on forever. One night his mother had told him about a story she read. The book was called The Deathly Hallows. In the story, Death himself personally made a wand and gifted it to a mortal. This wand is known as the Elder Wand, the most powerful wand in existence. The young man slaved away trying to make the same wand for years and years. After 40 years of trying, he finally accepted no mortal man can create a wand that incorporates thestral tail hair with elder wood. Because even though elder wood was considered rare and powerful, it just could not handle the power of thestral hair. We can assume Death used something more powerful than regular magic to strengthen the wood. So the man sought out all different kinds of wood capable of making a wand and tried incorporating thestral hair into it as a core. This process took him many years, since he would try many times over with the same wood to make sure it wasn't his talent in the way. The man tried 42 different types of wood, even some types of wood not used in wand making, just because it was a possibility. On the 42nd type of wood, he finally found success, first try no less. After that first success, however, he failed thousands of more attempts. He couldn't create a second like it. Finally, he accepted defeat and retired. It would have taken the fool less time had he not gone in alphabetical order. The wood he used was yew wood, known for its dark tendencies and power over life and death. The old fool was successful, but the wand he created never chose anyone, and if it didn't choose them, it would cause spell backlash to the wielder. The wand is temperamental, like a child. It will lash out at any sign of weakness or its owner's death. That old fool was my great-great-grandfather Gervant Ollivander, and you are now holding that very wand. 15 inches, natural black yew, unyieldingly sturdy, and a thestral tail hair core, the one and only, outside of the elder wand, of course. I just stare at him dumbfounded, still taking in all the information he has just given me. This story was new to me. Did the elder wand get created after Sid left society? I'll be honest, young man, I'm not sure if I even want to give away this wand. It is like a family treasure. Not only that, but considering everything about it, this wand must be very powerful, not that anyone has ever shown its power. But considering the wand chooses the wizard and you are the first person that wand has ever chosen, I will bite my tongue and part ways with it. I bow my head. Thank you, sir. No need, boy. That will be 7 galleons, please. He says with a pained smile. I dig in my bag and pull out 2 massive handfuls of galleons and put them on the desk that should be at least a few hundred. Boy, this is way too much. All wands only cost 7 galleons, this has been a tradition since the founding of this store. Just consider it a gift from a friend and patron. I smile at him. Seeing the look on my face, he just nods. By the way, young man, what is your name? Soren Black, I say as I start walking away. I can see him nod out of the corner of my eye. As I am about to open the door, I turn to face him. By the way, sir, is it real? The Elder Wand. He smiles at me. Yes, Mr. Black, yes it is. With that I nod at him as thanks and leave, completing my trip to Diagon Alley and getting my first wand. I meet up with Auntie, who is waiting outside the shop, and we head home. Comment. 3 comment. Vote. 1 left. Chapter 10, Embrace the Shadows. There are only a few days left until I head off to Hogwarts, so there are a few loose ends I want to get tied up before I leave. I operate to the coast near the North Sea. There are some things I want to test out before I head off, and my magic usage gets restricted. As I tear in, I look out to the sea where I know Azkaban is hidden. Memories flood my head, the lack of control I felt. I have to get it under control. I haven't felt the hunger since eating Sirius. Maybe it's the guilt, maybe it's my control, or perhaps it's the strength of his soul simply just filled me up. But I refuse to sit here and wait for the hunger to return. Tonight is the night I will produce a patroness, though I'm not sure if I can even make one. I know the happiest moment of my life well. It may sound pathetic, but it is the day I met Andromeda. That is my light. I hold out my wand as I think of the day with as much clarity I can, the feeling of happiness I felt when she hugged me for the first time. Expecto Patronum. As I flick my wand, there is a moment of pause before a white substance bursts forth from my wand. It slowly forms in the shape of a giant beast. The beast looks like a mix between a leopard and a lion, with a spiked tail and about 5 meters tall. I look at the beast in front of me, tears threatening to fall from my eyes. God, I'm so pathetic. My happiest memory comes from a woman I'm lying to. Someone who I can't even bring myself to tell the truth to, perhaps the first person I've ever loved and my first true mother. But I will guarantee my family's safety. I shake my sadness off as I look up at the noble figure of my patroness putting a hand on its massive paw. Now I test my theory. I close my eyes as I begin to shift into my dementor form. My sight barely begins to fade before coming back instantly. A piercing pain flows through my head, causing me to collapse and cough out saliva. It hurts more than being hit with that damn cricket bat. In the back of my mind, I feel the darkness cowering and I feel relieved. I was right. As the pain fades, I force my patroness away and stand up, brushing the sand off my clothes. At least now I have a way to control myself, now to move on to my second task. I take a breath and open my arms as I shift into my true form. I grow nearly 4 feet into a 9-foot-tall monster with grey skin covered in a thin cloak. The black fog begins rolling out of the openings in my cloak as if made from my body. I fly high into the sky until I'm a good 50 feet above the ground, still facing the direction of Azkaban. I close off my senses, letting the darkness slowly take the reins to better use my instincts. Then I did something I had felt I could do since the first day I saw a dementor but have always been too scared to do. I shriek. The scream sounds ghastly, certainly not a sound a human can make, not only that it was loud, too loud to use around humans without bursting an eardrum. After my shriek, it only took a minute for the effects to be apparent. If you looked closely at the horizon, you could see a wave of black heading towards me. With the light of the moon being blocked by the figures on the horizon, it made it all the more spine-chilling. It only took around 30 seconds for the figures to approach me, and when they do, none of them dare get close to me, instead they start to fly in a circle around me. I try to reach out my mind to all of them at the same time, and it seems to work as I can feel a slight connection to all of them. They all float in a circle around me, creating a large vortex of shadows. Cease as I speak, all of them stop dead in their tracks and stare at me. They form a ball around me nearly 360 degrees. I look around, nearly all of them are perfectly identical, however I'm one of the few people who can tell them apart, if not the only. I spot the 3 oldest after observing the crowd for a bit. They are slightly larger, their skin is clearer, and they have their faces exposed. I point them out. You, and you. You 3 will stay. The rest of you may leave. As soon as I said this, they scattered like rabbits to a gunshot. All of them head back the direction they came, not a stray in sight. I point at the oldest. You will protect this woman. I hold up a picture of Andromeda. You are not to be seen, and keep your distance so your aura does not affect her. She is currently in Appleby. Nod if you understand. I wait for the nod before moving to the next. I point at the second oldest. You will protect this woman. I hold up a picture of Sis Dora. You are not to be seen, and keep your distance so your aura does not affect her. If she enters busy areas, just wait outside for her. Nod if you understand. It nods after a second as well. I point at the youngest. You will protect this man. I hold up a picture of Uncle Ted. You are not to be seen. He is currently in Appleby and goes to work every day, so you can just wait for him outside his job every day. Just try to keep away from muggles. Nod if you understand. The last one doesn't nod, instead it moves its upper body in a downward motion like a bow. I shake my head as I wave them off and they all scatter in the direction of Appleby. I sigh after keeping up that act. I truly feel tired now. What an emotionally draining night. As I land and morph back to my human form, I notice something I missed. A cloth. There is a cloth sitting, no floating, under where I was flying at maybe 5 inches off the ground, certainly enough to be noticeable. It's a pitch black cloth, and the second I touch it, it wraps around my arm, slowly weaving around it. I don't get scared as I get a familiar sensation from it. I let it do as it pleases since I feel like it doesn't have any bad intentions. Eventually it settles on wrapping around my neck as a scarf. Since it was summoned along with the Dementors, I can only assume it is related, so I try speaking to it through my mind. As expected, when I reach out I can feel a connection. Can you hear me? It confirms my thoughts by tapping my shoulder with the end of the scarf, that kind of looks like an arm. Can you speak? After a few seconds of nothing, I assume that's a no. Would you like to join me? It taps my shoulder a bunch of times. I laugh a bit. I think that's a yes. Do you have a name? Nothing. Do you want me to name you? It taps my shoulder. How about Sin? It taps my shoulder. I need a better naming sense. Sorry, Sin. After that I sit on the beach and talk to Sin for a while, telling him about my life and my plans for the future. Man, I really am pathetic, talking to a piece of animated fabric. I guess it's okay. Sin seems happy about it, not many people to talk to while being a piece of cloth. Hey. Having spilling my heart out to a piece of cloth for nearly an hour, I decide to go home before Auntie notices that I am gone. Apparition is a truly useful sk*LL. Chapter 11, On My Way. These last few days before Hogwarts has been kind of stressful. I named my Screech Owl Shy because he never stays close. However, if you look around at any given time you can probably find him lurking on a tree or high perch within view. Now the main cause of my stress has been the constant fighting between Shy and Sin. It seems like Shy can get a little jealous. Good thing he doesn't stick around much. More of a side note, but another cause of frustration is the fact Sin only eats raw meat, a good thing he doesn't need to eat often. I have just resorted to feeding him field mice. He seems happy about it. He seems to do a small shake when he gets fed. I wonder if that's his form of purring? I decided to check my textbook, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, on what type of creature Sin is. It didn't take me long to find it. Turns out he is something called a Lethofold, an evil creature and the only known relative to the Dementor. According to this, they are known to be extremely aggressive and uncasteriskable in any capacity, but Sin doesn't seem aggressive. Is it because of me? In big bold letters, it classifies them as XXXXX level beasts, the same rating as a dragon. That seems rather silly. Below that it lists the reasons why you should never approach one without training or assistance. Silent movement. Uncasteriskable. Ability to counter spells. Stealthy. Only attacks sleeping targets. Can change form to any clothing or fabric. No deterrence. Patroness charm. Well known for devouring muggles and sleeping wizards with a near 100% K*LL rate. Sin, have you ever eaten a person? Sin taps my shoulder lightly as if not wanting to admit it. I guess that's why he seems to love raw meat so much. I shiver. Don't do that again, please. Well, at least to any good people. Sin taps my shoulder twice. I sigh at his confirmation. After that, I search for that giant creature that was my patroness, of course scrolling through anything with the asterisk noting known patroness. After going through all of the known patroness, I go through the ones noted as asterisk possible. Patroness star. These were creatures Newt's commander deemed as not truly evil and merely misunderstood. There weren't many of these creatures, so I found it fast. It turns out to be a Nundu, a beast from Africa, and possibly the most dangerous beast in the world. As commander noted, they are incredibly territorial creatures, but once they accept you as kin they are like an overprotective mother. I wonder what kind of relationship he had with one to give them that assessment. These few days I've also been managing the Dementors. The two oldest seem to be doing a great job, but the youngest is a bit stupid. Nearly everyone at Uncle Ted's work has started to suffer from depression. The stupid thing thought that staying outside his work waiting for him meant to just hover above the roof the entire day. After that incident, I assigned him a specific spot to stand a few hundred feet away from his work in a clock tower. I also charmed the maintenance guy to stock the vending machine full of chocolates so they don't end up K***ing themselves. Good thing I live in a part wizard, part muggle community, or else the ministry would be all over me. The day has finally come, time to head to Hogwarts. I came walking downstairs carrying a giant trunk, struggling to get it down myself even with my superior physique. Give me a break, my body is like that of a freaking 11-year-old. As I get down I see Auntie and Uncle Ted are sitting at the table smiling at my struggling figure. Sis Dora is standing by the door just laughing at me. Auntie, tell me again why I can't just put all my stuff in my pouch. I say, nearly out of breath. It's tradition. I think her smile grew. Sis Dora seems to find it funny since she started laughing harder. I glare at her. I thought you hated tradition. I say tiredly, leaning on my case. Well, this one isn't awful and racist, so deal with it. She just smirks before laughing again. Seeing me look at her, Sis Dora tries to get herself together and coughs a few times. Ahem, she walks up to me, kneels, and hugs me. Sorry I can't go to see you off, Soren, or our training doesn't let you take breaks. I roll my eyes at her exaggerated kneel. I'm less than half a foot shorter, but hug her back anyway. It's fine, sis, make sure you do well training. I can't brag about having a sister who failed aura training. I tease her. She ruffles my hair and stands up, turning to Auntie and Uncle. Bye Mom, bye Dad, see you later tonight. Then she turns back to me, pulling out her wand. Bye Soren. She apparates away, but not before smiling deviously at her mother. What did I say about apparition inside the house? I need to scold that girl when she gets back. Auntie says, obviously not that upset. Then she turns to me. Come on Soren, we should leave now if we want to get there before 11. I don't know why but Auntie wanted to take Ted's muggle car to get to the train station. The drive took a little over 2.5 hours, Auntie said there was a closer station but she wanted me to go to the one she went to, and the one Sis went to, King's Cross Station. When we get into London I'm kind of overwhelmed. I grew up in a small town in my last life, and Appleby was the very definition of a village. How can people live in such a compact area? Maybe it's because it's next to a giant park but Black Manor feels much more open than any of these streets. We arrive at the train station. This is a first for me. I've never been to a train station and this one is massive so I'm a bit intimidated. I grabbed a trolley to help carry my big trunk and Shy's cage, and yes, I did indeed call a cart a trolley, I'm being influenced. We walk in and there are rows of tracks with giant support columns listing the tracking number. I look at Auntie. The tracks are listed by flat numbers. There is no 9 3/4 track. She just smiles happily. Come, you'll see something neat today. She walks fairly deep into the station stopping in front of the third pillar after 9, and one pillar before 10. Come, Soren, stand here. She grabs me by the shoulders and points at the pillar. Run straight at it with no hesitation. I look at her like she just told me to jump off a bridge. I feel a hand pat my back. Don't worry boy, I was scared my first time too. I hear Uncle Ted say. I nod as I look at Uncle Ted. Sometimes I forget he is a wizard as well. I harden myself to hit that wall with everything I got. I take off at a little more than a jog, pushing the trolley straight at the wall. I close my eye as I'm about to hit it, but against my expectations I hit nothing. I open my eyes and I'm in the same station, just a lot smaller with only one platform. Everyone around is also carrying large trunks and owls. I guess this is the place. I look back at the wall I came through and wait for Auntie and Uncle. After maybe a minute they came through the wall, both of them laughing hysterically. What took you guys so long? I look kind of annoyed. They seem to laugh harder at my annoyance. Haha, honey, you shouldn't trust me so blindly. Your face when you were about to hit the pillar was absolute gold. She is laughing so hard she had to wipe a tear away. My face flushes deep red, exasperated by my paleness. I cross my arms, hump. She looks at me apologetically and puts her hand on my shoulder. Sorry honey, won't do it again. Her words are unconvincing since she is still giggling. All right, let's put your stuff in the storage cart and get you on the train. Ted chimes in. We put my stuff in storage and say our goodbyes. Auntie wanted me to get on the train early and meet new people, so there are still a few minutes before the train leaves. But me being the anti-social freak I've been in both my lives, I decided to just sit down in an empty cabin and watch the passing families. Chapter 12, The Hogwarts Express. Just as the train was about to depart and people were waving to their parents, someone knocks on my cabin door. I recognize him by his scar immediately. It's Harry Potter, James's son, and the entire reason I came to Hogwarts. He looks kind of nervous. Mind if I sit? He asks politely. I motion my hand at the seat in front of me. Please, go ahead. As he sits down he extends his hand. Harry Potter. I shake his hand. I know, you are rather famous. I'm Soren Black, a pleasure to meet you. The past day has been quite incredible, finding out I'm a wizard, becoming rich overnight, and turning out to be famous. It's pretty unbelievable. He says with a wry smile. Oh yeah, I nearly forgot that the savior was raised by muggles. How was that experience? I ask, genuinely curious about how the Dursleys raised him in Sirius's absence. My aunt and uncle are, well, let's just say not the kindest of people. If it gives you an idea, my bedroom is a crawl space, was a crawl space. They left the house when my letters from Hogwarts came. They just moved back, so I don't have a room till I return. He looks kind of embarrassed as he says that. My eyes narrow. So where are all your things? He smirks and shrugs. Everything I own is in my trunk. Now that he mentions it I notice that he is wearing hand-me-downs with holes in them. My brows furrow. I quickly close my eyes and concentrate on Harry in front of me. It's worse than I thought. His soul is a dark grey with only a few speckles of white. There also seems to be a small black ball attached to his soul. What the hell? My blood is fucking boiling. Not only does the boy have something wrong with his soul, but he has been abused his whole life. Are you okay? He asks, snapping out of my thoughts. I open my eyes and fake a smile with gritted teeth. Yeah, sorry, was in thought. Hey, I've been practicing divination lately. Do you mind if I try to look into pieces of your past? He looks uncertain but still agrees. Great, give me a hand. He puts out a hand that I grab as I make sure to set a tracking charm on him, just in case. Then I peer into his third eye. I saw everything. the neglect, the slave work, the missed childhood. Sirius never should have trusted Dumbledore's opinion letting him leave Harry with the Dursleys. I'm going to fucking throat punch that old fool. I'm going to fuke. I feel the darkness in the back of my mind trying to push forward. I zone out as I try and control my anger. Harry abruptly pulls his hand away. Apparently, I had started to squeeze too hard. I quickly squash my anger looking back up at him apologetically. Sorry, I got a little emotional. You may not know this but my father was a friend of your father's. So seeing you mistreated like that made me a bit angry. I had a wry smile on my face, it was the best I could give. Thank you, for being mad on my behalf. He looked a bit embarrassed. So you said our fathers were friends, what was he like? My father, I mean. I smile. I don't know much. My father wasn't around much either, but a word of advice, be careful with Professor Snape, our fathers used to bully him so I'm sure he'll try to return the favor. Knock knock. Harry and I turn to the cabin door and see a ginger kid wearing worn-down clothes standing there. His clothes are worse than Harry's. Not because they are hand-me-downs, but because they are cheap and low quality. That being said, the person who patched it did a wonderful job. Mind if I sit in here? Everywhere else is full, he asks. Harry and I look at each other, I shrug. Harry looks at the kid. Not at all. He sits next to Harry. I'm Ron, by the way, Ron Weasley. I'm Soren, Soren Black. I introduce myself. I'm Harry, Harry Potter. Ron's eyes go wide staring at the both of us. You're from House Black. He looks at me with a bit of distaste, without giving me time to answer. And you're Harry Potter. Is it true, do you have the scar? Harry just smiles and brushes away his hair a little. Wicked, Ron says, staring a bit too hard. Rattling comes from the hallway. We turn to see a kind-looking old woman is pushing a trolley full of candy. There are at least 15 different types of candy on her small trolley. Any candy off the trolley, dears? The nice old lady asks. My eyes light up. Wizard candy has become one of my favorite things over these last few months. I even started collecting the chocolate frog cards. I have learned from them that I have awful luck. I pull some galleons out of my pouch. We will take a little of everything, and 5 chocolate frogs. I say with a wide grin. Ron just looks at me with a dropped jaw. You really are from that family, aren't you? I don't reply since I'm too busy gathering my treasures. As I open my 5th chocolate frog, I catch it as it tries to hop away. I stuff the frog in my mouth and turn it over to check the card. Really? That makes 5 Dumbledore in a row. What kind of luck is that? Ron laughs at my complaining. Yeah, I have about 5 of him as well. Rotten luck to get 5 in a row though. I turn to see Harry making a rotten face while eating the every flavor jelly beans. I laugh at the twisted face he is making. Yeah, the jelly beans can be pretty brutal. I heard of some unlucky sap who got a vomit-flavored one once, I say laughing. After saying that, we hear a loud squeaking coming from Ron. He has a rat peeking over his lap eating out of a jelly bean box. I hate rats. As I look at the rat, I realize, it looks really familiar, like really familiar. It reminds me of that image Sirius burned into my mind. Then it dawns on me and my face breaks out into a smile, a very, very big smile. I'm positive I probably look wicked right now. Luckily they aren't looking at me right now. Ron is looking at Harry and Harry is staring at the rat. I can feel the darkness itching to rush forward. My desire to rush forward and squish this rat with my bare hands. But I easily repress it. I wish to savor this K*LL. Pettigrew. This is Scabbers, by the way. Pathetic, isn't he? Ron says, looking at his rat. I tone down my grin a bit. He is indeed pathetic. I accidentally spit my last word out of hate. They both stare at me, probably creeped out. Am I being creepy? Probably. Ron looked back at Harry. Fred gave me a spell to turn him yellow. Would you like to see? Yeah, Harry and I say in unison. Ron pulls out his wand, obviously a hand-me-down wand. He starts to clear his throat and raises his wand. Before he can chant, a girl with light brown hair and dark brown eyes appears in the doorway of our cabin. Has anyone seen a toad? A boy named Neville seems to have lost one. She asks. We all shake our heads and Ron replies no. I give her a bit of an annoyed face as I want to see Ron experiment with his pet rat. Oh, are you doing magic? Let's see then. Ron clears his throat again. He waves his wand and says. Sunshine daisies, buttermellow, turn this stupid fat rat yellow. The spell just makes a pull of smoke and the box of jelly beans falls off its head. My excitement is quickly *LLED as the rat quickly hides just around Ron's back. I put my palm on my forehead. Holy shit, this boy believed that was a spell. Are you sure that's a real spell? The girl asks. It certainly freaking isn't, I say to myself. Well, it's not very good, is it? Of course, I've tried only simple spells but all of them have worked for me. She continues. A bit stuck up, hey. I think to myself, focusing on her slightly large front teeth. She steps in front of me and motions me to move over. I gesture for her to sit and move over. She sits where I was sitting, straight across from and facing Harry. She pulls out her wand. For example, she points her wand at Harry only a few inches from his face. Oculus reparo. As she finishes chanting, the taping around Harry's glasses comes off and the crack seems to be fixed. That's better now, isn't it? She asks with a smug smile. That was okay, but if this is going to be a wand measuring contest. I nudge her with my elbow a bit. Would you like to see some more interesting magic? I ask with a mischievous smile. She just nods her head with a bit of interest. As I pull out my wand, I hear Ron remark, looks expensive, obviously a little jealous. I just smile at his comment. I gently wave my wand and chant Incendio la minus Aurora as I wave down embers of fire rain from the top of the cabin. I'm only able to chain offensive spells, and I'm not the best at it, but this is more of just a for-show spell. It is still painful if it hits you though. If you look close you can see the flames look like flower petals, however, the flames fade before they touch anyone, except Scabbers. While everyone is distracted with the beautiful falling flames, I quickly mutter Silencio, muting the rat so Ron can't hear Scabbers cry out in pain as he gets burned by the falling flames. I watch as Scabbers shrieks and runs away out of the cabin. I want to close the door to keep him here to suffer, but then they would notice. Since the rat is gone, there is no reason to keep the flames going, so I end the spell. Wow, that was beautiful. How did you do that? The still unknown girl says. Yeah, that was awesome/wicked. Both Harry and Ron say with glowing eyes. I just smile at them. My older sis is an aura in training, she has taught me a thing or two. That wasn't a lie, I did indeed learn Incendio with Sis Dora's help, just not the entire chain spell. That's amazing. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. She offers out her hand with a smile that hides her teeth. I shake her hand with a soft smile. Soren Black, I think I am getting better at pretending to socialize. Her jaw drops. You're the son of that man in Azkaban, Sirius, right? I read about you in the most likely to be the next Dark Lord catalog. I scowl about to answer, but Harry chimes in. I'm Harry Potter. The Harry Potter? As in the boy who lived? This cabin is just full of celebrities. She turns to Ron. And you are? She looks hopeful. I'm Ronald Weasley. He looks kind of awkward since he was just stuffing his face full of chocolate. At least he is a noble. I think in Ron's defense, so he is at least a bit interesting. She gives a forced smile. Pleasure. She stands up, taking her leave. You had all better change, we are getting close to Hogwarts. As she walks out, I turn to Ron and Harry. She is kind of stuck up, hey? They both just nod. Even saying that we all start to get changed into our robes. Chapter 13, at Hogwarts Gates. As we finish getting changed, the train exits a dense forest, and from our cabin, you could see a massive castle sitting in the middle of a sprawling lake. The castle wasn't like a normal European castle in layout but had the architecture for sure, but it was more open than a regular castle. I stare out the window at the castle and all looks like we are going to arrive soon. I couldn't help but gawk, considering it is the grandest thing I've seen in both of my lives. Both Harry and Ron come over to the window to get a look at Hogwarts. They seem even more taken aback than me, so I feel a bit justified. Amazing, Harry mutters. Wicked, Ron says excitedly. As we are looking at Hogwarts, we hear running steps heading towards our cabin. We all turn to see a boy with slicked back blonde hair, green eyes, and a sharp face smiling at us from the doorway. He has two fat kids behind them that are pretty tall for their age but certainly don't look the brightest. I heard Harry Potter was in this cabin, is it you? He points at me. I respond with a smile and point to the actual Harry. He raises an eyebrow and looks at Harry. You're the boy I met in Diagon Alley, aren't you? I guess our friendship was meant to be. He turns to Ron. And I would suggest you choose your friends better, Potter. What's wrong with Ron? I ask, genuinely curious. The boy merely snorts. He's a Weasley. He turns back to Harry and extends his hand. I'm Malfoy, by the way, Draco Malfoy. My cousin. He introduces his last name first. Hey? Must be a mommy's boy. Harry just stares at his hand for a second, then looks up and smiles. I think I'm pretty good at picking friends actually. Draco pulls back his hand and scoffs. You will soon learn, Potter, some families are better than others. He glares at Ron as he walks away. I immediately roll my eyes at his words. Once they are gone I look at Ron and Harry. What an ass. This causes Harry to laugh and Ron to nod with a smile. Ron looks at me curiously. By the way, where are you from? Your accent. I am a bit blindsided by the question. I have been so used to everyone around me speaking with Irish, British, Welsh, and Scottish accents that I forgot I have one different from them. My mother was American, so I was raised there. I say with a small smile. Harry seems to pick up on my past tense. I'm sorry for your loss. A bit of genuine sadness passes my heart. No one has ever told me that. It's okay. It has been a long time since she passed. Ron catches on slowly. Sorry. I just wave him off as I stare off into space towards a train station we are approaching. The train jerks as it starts to come to a stop and the students start coming out of their cabins preparing to get off, especially the older kids who are eager to see their friends again. As we are about to head out, two older kids, twins, who look exactly like Ron just more handsome and taller, show up at the door. They ignore Harry and I, looking right at Ron. We will be waiting for you in the Gryffindor seats, make sure to give the troll a few good licks before you head over. The one on the left says. Yeah, don't wanna embarrass Percy now you. I can see the headlines now. Younger brother of Prefect Percy dies during sorting. The one on the right adds. They both laugh as they walk away. Brothers, I assume? I ask Ron. Yeah, the slightly taller one is Fred, the other is George, then I have three other brothers as well, William the oldest, Charlie the second, and Percy the third and current prefect of Gryffindor, Ron says, counting on his fingers. What was that your brother said about fighting a troll? Why would you be fighting a troll? Harry asks. That's how we are sorted into houses, Gryffindor for the brave, Ravenclaw for the smart, Slytherin for the purebloods, and Hufflepuff for the leftover. Ron states matter-of-factly. I look at him with a tinge of pity. Ron, that isn't how we are sorted. You won't have to fight a troll, probably ever. They don't just keep a troll at Hogwarts. I think. I can hear Harry let out a sigh of relief, causing me to look at him. You believe that? As the train finally stops, people are rushing out in droves. We follow in the crowd and hear a big voice yelling. First years over her dot. As I see the man, I recognize him, Hagrid. Someone Sirius knew pretty well, and the man Sirius gave his bike to make sure Harry arrived at the Dursleys safely. That was just before he went on the hunt for Pettigrew. As all the first years gather around Hagrid, Harry, Ron, and I make our way to the front. Hey, Hagrid, Harry says. Hagrid responds with a smile and a small wave. You know him? Ron asks a bit cautiously. Yeah, he picked me up and helped me shop for my school supplies. He is nice. Harry smiles as he says this, but Ron looks thoroughly unconvinced. Come on, first years need to follow me, be sure to watch your step. Hagrid said after seeing all the first years had gathered. He leads us down a dark slippery slope which leads to the lake. A lot of people were bumbling down the hill, especially one kid who fell down and nearly rolled into the lake. He was lucky I noticed him roll by me and I managed to catch his arm as he went by, stopping him. At the lake were a large number of boats waiting for us. They were rowboats, but they didn't have oars. Ron, Harry, and I sit in one together. As I look back, I see the kid I caught from rolling down the hill looking around like he had no one to sit with. You can come to sit with us if you want. I offer. I hear Ron sigh as I say this. The kid looks like he just won the lottery and heads towards us. As he steps in the boat, he nearly falls over from the swaying water. When he finally steps in all the way, the boats begin to move on their own, heading towards the castle. Thank you. He looks at me gratefully. It's no problem, I'm Soren Black, this is Harry Potter, and the redhead is Ron Weasley. They both smile at him and Harry gives a small wave. He looks wide-eyed at Harry for a second, but noticing all of us staring at him, he puts his head down, blushing. I am Neville. Neville Longbottom. His face lights up like a tomato. This time it's my turn, my eyes go wide. Longbottom? Like the Longbottom? He looks kind of confused. Yes. I grab his hand. Your parents are freaking heroes, man. I shake his hand vigorously, but his face goes pale when I mention his parents. It looks like I just shot his dog in front of him. He looks at Ron and Harry, who both look confused, then looks back at me. Could you please not mention them, please? I stare at him hard. You should be proud of your parents. This time I speak in a lower voice so Ron and Harry can't hear. I know. I am, it's just a sore subject. He looks kind of ashamed of himself as he says this. I look at him but he won't meet my eyes. Sorry, how about I give you some good information as an apology? Bellatrix Lestrange is dead. Neville looks up at me with wide eyes, I only smile back. He does indeed look a little satisfied. Harry starts to speak up but he is cut off by the jerk of the boat as it hits the shore. I pat Neville's back for affirmation before standing up. Hagrid's voice rings out, "Menfers years, don't wanna leave them waitin' now do ya?" Everyone gets out of their boats and start to follow Hagrid. Luckily, the hill on this side of the lake isn't as steep. Chapter 14, Sorting Ceremony. Hagrid brings us up a hill that led to a courtyard with a large gate surrounded by walls. The layout was open, and virtually nothing was fully enclosed. It was more like a university campus than it was a traditional castle. It didn't look great for defense, but beautiful nonetheless. The doors we were walking towards are massive, they look how I would image a grand cathedral. When we get to the doors they swing open without Hagrid touching them. Inside is just as big as you would imagine, the walls are stone brick laid all throughout, torches are lining the halls. A woman is standing just inside, she looks pretty, maybe a bit old though. She is maybe 50, sharp features, dark black hair, sporting emerald green robes that matched her eyes. She must have been a stunner in her younger days, I think to myself. Hagrid nods to her. Gotcha, the first year's her, Professor McGonagall. Thank you Hagrid, I can take them from here. Hagrid nods again and walks away. She gestured for us to follow, she leads us deeper into the castle and finally stops at the top of a flight of stairs. The stairs diverge and continue up and also lead to massive doors that are currently closed, but you can hear loud chatter behind them. She turns around and begins, "Welcome to Hog." She is cut off by a toad croaking not even a foot in front of her. "Trevor!" I hear Neville yell from right next to me as he runs up to grab his toad. As he picks up Trevor he slowly looks up to see Professor McGonagall giving him a death stare. He slowly backs away, sinking into the crowd behind me. She starts again as I was saying, "Welcome to Hogwarts." She paused to look around, I notice her eyes lingering on Harry. "Soon you all will be joining the start of year feast, however before you sit you will be sorted into your houses. The 4 houses are called Hufflepuff, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Each house has its own proud and noble history of great witches and wizards. You will be in these houses all 7 years you are attending. Your triumphs will earn you points for your house, while any rule breaking or demerits will cause your house to be stripped of points. At the end of each year, the points will be tallied and the house with the most points will have the honor of winning the house cup." Once she is finished, a man who looks like he has seen better days opens the big doors behind her. "They are ready for them, Professor." She nods to him. "Thank you Mr. Filch." The ugly man retreats back into the room with another word. She turns back to us. "You all had best make yourselves presentable, the entire school will be watching. Now come, follow me." She opens the big doors fully and we follow closely behind. The hall is enormous with 4 tables nearly 20 meters long lined with students who clapped and yelled as we walked in. One table at the back ran horizontally as opposed to the others. There are older people sitting at it. I could see Quirrell next to Snape near the end, not far from Hagrid. At the center of the table was the current most powerful wizard alive, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, Order of Merlin First Class. Our eyes meet and I see the glint of light behind his eyes causing me to shiver. He nods politely to me and I return it without a second thought. As I look around I notice that there are candles floating above our heads to give light and that instead of a ceiling there was a night sky instead. The stars are even accurate to the ones outside. I recognize a few of the popular constellations. As if noticing me staring at the ceiling, Hermione whispers to me, "It's bewitched to look like a night sky. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history," she says without hiding the smugness in her voice. When did she get behind me? I think a bit terrified at the stealth capabilities. As we get to the front of the hall and stand in front of the professors, McGonagall brings forward a small stool and a dirty old hat. The hat is tall, pointy, and faded grey, but it looks like it used to be a dark brown. It has a few stitch marks in it as well. The hat begins to sing through a small cut near the rim. "Oh, you may not think I'm pretty. But don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter hat than me. You can keep your bowl." The song bores me so I begin to look around some more. I notice some changes with Quirrell. I didn't notice them at first glance, but he looks like a completely different person, not that I could see him well the first time. But now he looks even more cowardly than before, keeping his arms close to his chest as if waiting to be attacked. He is also wearing a turban now, it honestly looks kind of dumb on him. It also appears to be a faded purple, but it may just be dirt. My thoughts are cut short by a roaring clap and some whistling. The hat's song must have been better than I thought. Professor McGonagall steps forward carrying a long scroll. When I call your name, you will be sorted. She cleared her throat. Abbott, Hannah. I nod. Alphabetical order, nice. A girl with blonde hair put into pigtails is the first to walk up slowly and sits on the seat hesitantly. McGonagall puts the hat on the girl and after a brief moment, the hat speaks loud and clearly. Hufflepuff. The kids sitting at the table to my immediate right cheer loudly and clap thunderously. The pigtailed girl goes and sits with them happily. McGonagall speaks up again. Black, Soren. The whole hall falls silent and the whispering begins. I even noticed some of the teachers began glaring at me. Hagrid is among the offenders. I step forward to sit on the stool. I can feel everyone's eyes following me, most of the looks I'm certain are not friendly. When I sit on the stool, McGonagall gives me a nod as she places the hat on my head. Immediately I hear the hat. This young and already talented in occlumency, a dangerous young one indeed, your ancestors would be proud. He lets out a brief laugh before considering again. You may be able to hide your memories and thoughts but no one can hide their emotions. A lot of darkness clouds your thoughts, but your meager light is as bright as a sun. You would do well in both Hufflepuff. Slytherin, perhaps Ravenclaw? What are your thoughts, child? Oh, I get a choice in this. I speak quietly, a bit confused. Not normally, but not everyone has your talent. Isn't that unfair? I reply skeptically. Life isn't fair, now speak. What is it you want? I want to be in Gryffindor, I say with confidence. Oh, and why is that? I want to be in the house that Lily and James were in, the one my father was in. The hat seems to go back into thought. Gryffindor, the hat yells. I hear some cheering coming from the Gryffindor table, but I notice most of the older students aren't cheering, some are even looking in dismay that I'm in Gryffindor. As I get to the table and sit in an empty spot, there are students greeting me, mostly the younger ones, but also Fred and George. Soon the cheering stops and the sorting resumes. Bones, Susan! Yells McGonagall. Hufflepuff. Boot, Terry. Ravenclaw. Granger, Hermione. Gryffindor. She sat on my right, getting a much warmer reception than me. I was a little jealous. But I clapped and congratulated her anyway. Longbottom, Neville. As Neville walked up, McGonagall had a noticeable scowl. Gryffindor. The hat yelled, having barely touched his head. Again the Gryffindor table broke out in cheers. Neville sit on my left and received a warm greeting as well. I am quite surprised but happy nonetheless. That child deserves to be happy. Potter, Harry. Everyone stared at him as well, but none of the stares were malicious like mine. I also notice McGonagall has a small smile, unlike literally everyone so far. It was either a blank look or a scowl. Does she have a thing for kids? I think, shivering a bit. Once the hat is on his head, it takes its time talking. None of us can hear their conversation, but after a bit, it finally yells. Gryffindor. With that word the entire Gryffindor table gets up to clap. It's to be expected for the savior. He sits on my right between Hermione and I, greeting everyone who comes up to shake his hand. Weasley, Ronald. Ron looks so nervous he's about to trip, luckily he doesn't. The hat takes a while, but after a few seconds, it finally yells Gryffindor. Again cheers ring out and he is greeted by his older brothers, even one that I haven't met before. I assume it's Percy, the current prefect. As soon as the sorting ends, Dumbledore gets up and steps to a podium. Welcome, to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words. Here they are: Nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. He turns around and goes back to his seat. Harry turns to Percy. Is he a bit mad? Hearing the question, I also turn to Percy with a questioning look. Percy smiles at Harry's question. Mad? Maybe. He is a genius, Harry. The best wizard in the world. He then turns to me. Potatoes. What? I ask. He just points at the roasted potatoes in front of him. Oh, sure, as we eat the food never seems to run out, the food just keeps reappearing. It was a grand feast, almost made me forget the glares everyone gave me. Chapter 15, The Dorms. After we were all mostly done eating, except Ron, we begin talking. I am introduced to a few other Gryffindor kids. Seamus Finnegan, a really annoying kid who liked to talk a lot, especially on subjects he didn't know much about. Dean Thomas, a nice guy who always seemed to have a smile on his face. Katie Bell, a pretty girl with dark brown hair and chestnut eyes, she was a year older than us. I also got to meet my first ghost. He is called Nearly Headless Nick, but his real name is Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington. I notice Harry is absent-mindedly staring at Snape. He turns to Percy. Hey, who is that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell? Ah, that's Professor Snape, the head of Slytherin and the potions professor. Be careful in his class, he is pretty harsh on the Gryffindors. He is after Quirrell's job and everyone knows it, knows a lot about the dark arts, Snape. I nod my head in agreement, having known Snape in my memories. Harry nods in response while staring at Snape. I nudge his shoulder. I'm sure he'll have a field day with you, I say with a teasing grin. Shut it, he playfully shoves my shoulder, making me laugh. Ahern, just a few more words now that we are all fed and watered. I have a few start of term notices to give you. First years should note that the forest on the grounds is forbidden to all students. And a few of our older students would do well to remember that as well. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes flashed in the direction of the Weasley twins. They both chuckled and gave each other high fives, proud to be singled out. I have also been asked by Mr. Filch, the caretaker, to remind you all that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors. Quidditch trials will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house teams should contact Madam Hooch. And lastly, I must tell you that this year, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. I hear Harry laugh a little next to me. I turn to him and give a really look. What? He's kidding, right? They wouldn't leave something dangerous in a school for kids, would they? He looks confused and a bit scared. Harry, we are in the wizarding world, not the muggle world. Anything and everything can be dangerous. I lean toward him a little and whisper. What if I told you that the scarf around my neck could KLL you anytime you wanted? As I say this, I feel Sin tap my shoulder as if to confirm he could indeed do it. Harry scoots away a little. You are kidding, right? I just give him a mysterious smile. Dumbledore's voice cuts in. All right, now before we turn in, let us sing the school's song. With a wave of his wand, and a golden string seemed to come out of it and form words hovering in the air. Words to the song, I presume. Hogwarts, Hogwarts. Hoggy-warty Hogwarts. Teach us something, please. Whether we be old and bald, or young with scabby knees, our heads could do with filling with some interesting stuff. For now they're bare and full of air, dead flies and bits of fluff. So teach us things worth knowing. Bring back what we've forgot. Just do your best. We'll do the rest. And learn until our brains all rot. Most of us finished the song, but Fred and George were standing on the table singing very slowly with broad arm motions as if singing opera. Dumbledore smiled at them as the golden words above changed to match their tune. When they finally finished, the entire hall burst into cheers, Dumbledore being the obvious loudest. I believe this has now become my most hated song, ever. It used to be Fly Me to the Moon, since my father loved it so much. But now I believe this one has taken the cake. It's awful. Ah, music, true magic. All right, now off with you, it is now bedtime. I roll my eyes at Dumbledore's words. I could not disagree more. Percy stands up and calls out, all right, first years, follow me back to the dorm rooms. As he finishes speaking, an empty goblet falls on his head, seemingly coming out of nowhere. Peeves! Percy yells, looking up. Do you want me to tell the Bloody Baron about your antics again? With his words, a ghost appears out of nowhere. No, no, it's fine, my hand just slipped. He gave a smile and flew off. He was an average-looking man, maybe mid-30s, with rat nest hair. For some reason he seems less eatable than the ghost from earlier. Percy turns back to the group of first years that are staring. Peeves, he is a poltergeist, a mischievous one at that. If he gets too out of hand, go tell Bloody Baron, he enjoys sorting him out. All right, now follow me. We follow him out of the Great Hall and up the stairs. Up the stairs is a long corridor with many different exits. We go in the very first one, which opens up to a sprawling maze of marble staircases. Each staircase leads to a platform, and most of the platforms have an exit. As we are walking up the first, it shifts and starts moving on its own, directing itself to a different platform on the other side of the same floor. Ah, rotten luck, we'll have to get on the next one to the left instead. He leads us down a flight to our left and back up one on the far right. I was honestly starting to get confused. Eventually, at the 7th floor, we got to an exit with a short corridor that has a large portrait at the end of it. Percy approaches the painting. The woman in the portrait starts to move and looks at Percy. "Password?" she asks. "Caput Draconis." As he finished speaking, the painting swung open like a door, revealing an entrance. As I step in, it opens into a tall room with a sofa, 3 big chairs, a desk, and a fireplace in the middle. Percy points to the door on the other side of the room. "Boys' dorms are up and to the left, girls are up and to the right. You will find your stuff has already been put in your bed." On my bed was all of my stuff, mostly already sorted out. Shy was in his cage on my bed. He makes a small screech as he sees me. I open his cage and let him fly around a bit, but when I let him out, he immediately perched himself on the tallest wardrobe in the room, looking down at all the kids moving in. My bed was placed between Dean and Ron, 2 down from Harry and across from Neville. Since we were all really tired, we decided to turn in for the night, mainly because we had class in the morning, would be a shame to be late on the first day. Chapter 16, Classes Day 1, I wake up early in the morning and head to breakfast. If I didn't have a lot of memories from Sirius about this maze that they call a staircase, I guarantee I would have gotten lost. In the Great Hall, I find Hermione has already sat down and is eating while reading. So I decide to say hi, seeing as she is the only person I recognized. I walk up behind her and pat her shoulder. "Good morning, what are you reading?" She turns looking surprised. "Oh, I'm studying for history of magic since it's our first class." I give a confused look. "But we haven't even met the teacher yet, how do you even know what to study?" "I just study everything. Since I'm Muggle-born, I have a lower starting point than everyone here, so I have to work twice as hard." "I get it, I also lived as a Muggle up until a few months ago as well. Getting used to magic has been quite the ride, especially for me. Yet I know, I read about you in a piece by Rita Skeeter. It wasn't anything good, it was basically a hit piece. It talked about how you were too talented in magic for someone who lived as a Muggle for 10 years, how you came from an elitist pure-blood family, and couldn't be trusted." She looked at me with eyes of sympathy. My first reaction is shock. How did this, Rita Skeeter, learn I was talented in magic? I am really confused. I always checked for souls before I used any larger form of magic. Noticing my silence, she continues, "You shouldn't worry about the rumors. I have only known you for a day. I can already tell you are a nice guy." I give a genuine smile. "Thank you for that. You aren't too bad yourself." After that, I eat breakfast. I had some beans on toast, a side of eggs, and a bit of Canadian bacon aka ham. As an ex-American, having beans for breakfast was a little odd, but was delicious anyway. I can understand how it could be a comfort food, I guess. After we got done eating, Hermione and I head to our first class, History of Magic. It is taught by Professor Binns, who apparently died a few hundred years ago when he fell asleep in his office and it caught fire. He woke up from his nap to teach and found out he had become a ghost. Not the brightest professor, I reckon. The class was honestly really boring, but it was helped by the fact that Hermione and Neville sat on my sides while Harry and Ron sat in front of me. I wonder how those two became friends so fast. Is it because they are both pretty average in every respect? Not that being average is bad, but let me be honest, nothing stands out about either of them. It makes you really wonder if Harry is actually the chosen one. I suppose the mark on his forehead proves he is the one who put down Voldemort. After class is over, there is a 30-minute break period which Harry and Ron used to goof off and Hermione used to study for the upcoming Charms class. While I had to help Neville find that damned frog of his, I swear I have to teach this boy a tracking spell before he drives me crazy. Next was Charms with Professor Flitwick. He is a short man about the size of a goblin but without the ugly features of a goblin. I am referring to their ugly nose and long fingers. He had piles of books on his desk stacked so high that if he were to sit in his seat you wouldn't be able to find him. The first thing he did was take roll call as soon as all of us were in our seats. When he called my name, he gave a very noticeable lingering glare. Although he never really looks back at me, it still bugs me. Why does everyone glare at me? It's like they think I'm serious. I think feeling wronged. However, when he called Harry's name, he seemed absolutely overjoyed to have the savior in his class. The obvious favoritism threw me off, but it's fine since it's over Harry, so I can't complain. As I wish only the best for my friends and I'm not much of a jealous person. The class goes by quickly since he only gives an introduction to what charms are and what we would be going through in the course. After class comes lunchtime, probably one of my favorite times of the day. I love food, but I can't match Ron. I don't know what that boy does with it. You would never know that he came from a poor family with the way he eats. I also make sure to take my time secretly giving Sin a few turkey legs in between bites. he seems to enjoy them, which is odd since he usually doesn't tend to eat non-raw meat. Hermione again is studying for Transfiguration before we even go to class. I guess that is a good call since Transfiguration does seem a bit dangerous as compared to the other subjects. Of course, that doesn't include defense against the dark arts, which is dangerous by nature. The very moment we all sit in McGonagall's class, she begins to lecture us. I can feel already that this will be a class that I need to pay attention in. As I showed myself earlier, I am lacking in Transfiguration. I would say I'm better than a first year though. Not that I tried many spells. Transfiguration is some of the most complex and dangerous magic you will learn at Hogwarts, she says, scanning the room. Anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. You have been warned. She has a stern look on her face as she says this, and I notice her eyes linger on me just like Flitwick. However, unlike Flitwick, she keeps scanning her eyes past me. I think I sat too close to Harry. I'm going to be scanned all year. Man, what do these professors have against kids? There was a stark difference in her class compared to the others. While in history we went over a basic overview of the course, and in charms we went over what charms actually are and what they can do. In Transfiguration, we start off by taking difficult to follow notes. Not that she was a bad teacher, just that it was a complex subject. I have a huge advantage since I had taken Muggle High School and am able to understand what made things and how different materials were comprised of a different number of protons and neutrons. Not only that, I had the memories of Sirius and read plenty of books on a similar subject in Sid's room. Our first task is to turn a match into a needle. After about 20 minutes I pretty easily figure it out. It took longer than I thought it would, honestly. After I figured it out, I turned to help both Hermione and Neville. With my help, Hermione easily made it. She is very intelligent for an 11-year-old. While Neville, on the other hand, even with my instruction can't even change the color of it. While I am struggling to help Neville, McGonagall hears me talking. She quickly walks up to me with a very displeased scowl. You had better have a good reason for talking. Mr. Black. She looks like she struggled to get out my name. I've already turned it into a needle, so I was helping Miss Granger and Mr. Longbottom since I want them to succeed as well. I reply with my best smile, showing her the needle I made. Hermione shows hers as well, confirming my story. McGonagall looks at me, not even smirking, then turns to Hermione. With a small smile she speaks, 5 points to each of you for Gryffindor. The class cheers and some even get up to congratulate Hermione and me. McGonagall looks at me with her smile gone, now it's replaced with her usual scowl as she walks away. Chapter 17, Classes Day 1, 2. After Transfiguration is the class I am most looking forward to. I can tell most of the other students are excited as well. It is time for defense against the dark arts. Although my knowledge of the dark arts was extensive, I had never actually been taught anything. I only learned the things I could myself since I didn't want to try anything too powerful and hurt myself or someone else. As we enter the room, a strong stench of garlic permeated the entire area. I hear the other kids whispering rumors about how he had been scared by vampires in Romania. I honestly feel insulted. The man who brought me down was scared off by some pitiful bloodsuckers. The same ones who have been forced into hiding for centuries? What happened to the confident man who was going on his trip around the world? He says he got his turban from an African prince on his travels for taking care of zombies, and that's why he wears it all the time. When the annoying runt Seamus asked how he took care of the zombies, he started to blush and changed the subject to the weather. When he walks by, you could get a whiff of a nasty smell from his turban. It's like he has never taken off to wash it since he got it. The lesson itself was also a joke. Getting past his stuttering was a job in itself, and he barely even covered anything. The days went by pretty fast, and I started waking up Ron and Harry early so we could eat breakfast together. I split my time between Ron/Harry and Hermione/Neville, seldom hanging out with all of them at once since it seemed Ron and Harry thought Hermione was stuck up. Not trying to be rude, but she is indeed a bit stuck up, but she is a nice person under that rude exterior. On Friday was our first day of potions, and for the third time, I warned Harry not to give Snape a reason to go after him. I hope he listens to me since from Sirius's memories I know James was particularly ruthless to Snape. During that breakfast was the first time we got our mail delivered. Hundreds of owls flew into the Great Hall and I spotted Auntie's owl Mura. I got a letter asking how my first week went. It made me happy to know I was being thought of. I wrote back a short list of events of everything that's occurred and the people I've met. Harry got an invitation from Hagrid to meet him after classes for tea. He responded with a yes, and he also invited Ron and me to come with him. Of course, we weren't going to decline. When we get to potions class, Snape started off by taking roll call, and I was pained to see we had the Slytherin in our class with us. I don't hate them in particular, but my cousin is an annoying rat. When he calls Harry's name, he looks up from his scroll. Ah, yes. Harry Potter. He enunciated his words hard. I forgot we have a celebrity this year. He speaks unnaturally slowly, it's kind of creepy. Harry looks uncomfortable. When Snape speaks, he gets chuckles from the ass-kissing Slytherin side, mainly from the blondie and his lackeys. Once Snape finishes roll call, he becomes just like McGonagall and gives us a long speech. You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making, he begins, looking between students. All of them are dodging his gaze save for Harry and me. As there is little foolish wand waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron, with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, ensnaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't a bunch of uneducated children as I usually have to teach. As he ended his speech, he was staring at me, but unlike every other teacher so far, it wasn't a scowl, just his usual bored look. After a moment of silence and some awkward eye contact, his eyes quickly moved to Harry, who is 2 seats away from me. His eyes flick to me and he gets a small grin before he looks back at Harry Potter. Harry jumps. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Harry glances at Hermione and me. She has her hand up and is nearly jumping out of her seat like a madwoman, while I lazily put my hand halfway up. I don't know, sir, Harry said reluctantly, having not read the literal first page of our textbook. Snape sneers at his answer. Tisk tisk, fame isn't everything, I guess. He ignores Hermione and me as he begins to pace. Let us try again. Potter, he speaks slowly and nearly spits the word Potter. Where would you look if I told you to find me Bezoar? Again Hermione and I put up our hands. There is no way Harry would know these things since he has been living a muggle life until 6 days ago. Malfoy and his lackeys were barely holding in their laughter at Harry's expense. Unlike the draft of living death, Bezoar isn't even mentioned in any of the sections of the book that I've read. If it wasn't for Sid's books on poison, I would have never heard of such a thing. I don't know, sir. Didn't even open the book before coming, did you, Potter? Snape snaps back. Snape still ignoring Hermione and me. What's the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? Potter. This time Hermione jumped out of her chair, raising her hand as high as ever, basically jumping. I still have my hand half up. But at this point I know he won't call on us, he just wants to shame Harry. I'm not against this style of teaching, but he is going a bit far. Shame is a good motivator. I don't know, Harry says again with less confidence. I think Hermione and Soren do though, why don't you try them? Most of the Gryffindor students laugh at this, and even some of the Slytherin do. Harry gets a small smirk as he lowers his head to hide it. I roll my eyes, knowing he earned himself a lecture. Sit, Snape ordered Hermione. For your information, Potter, asphodel and wormwood make a sleeping potion so powerful it is known as the draught of living death. A bezoar is a stone taken from the stomach of a goat, and it will save you from most poisons. As for monkshood and wolfsbane, they are the same plant, which also goes by the name of aconite. Well? Why aren't you all copying that down? He turned around in a dramatic fashion, waving his robes. Under his breath, I hear Harry whisper, no wonder my father bullied you. While taking notes. Ron, Hermione, Seamus, and I were all stunned that he just said that. It wasn't very loud and not many of us heard it. I don't think Snape did either, but it seems I am wrong. Snape turns around quickly with wide eyes and a small vein popping out on his wide forehead. I grab my wand because the way he is looking at Harry looks like he will KLL him at any moment. He gets right on top of Harry, standing in front of his desk looking down on him with piercing eyes. 20 points will be taken from Gryffindor, and Mr. Potter will be serving detention with me on Saturday and Sunday. Snape lets out a long breath as he snaps around in a far more dramatic fashion than earlier. I sigh in relief as I tuck my wand back under my robe. Harry looks kind of shaken from it, but what can I say? It is certainly his fault. Even if you don't like someone, that's no reason to make fun of their trauma. The class continued as normal. He separated us into groups of 2. Snape would judge the Gryffindor students harshly. All except me. He praised me like no tomorrow, which made the Gryffindor students look at me with resentment like I was a traitor. He said I was a prodigy in potions and Malfoy wasn't far behind, but Neville, poor Neville, can never catch a break and managed to melt a cauldron on his first try. I honestly don't know how he managed to make acid out of horned slugs, nettles, and crushed snake fangs. When the cauldron collapsed and drenched Neville, making big red boils on his arms and legs. Harry again got in trouble for letting Neville, his partner, make such a blindingly obvious mistake. All you had to do was read the instructions. Even I was a bit upset with him having let Neville hurt himself. How did someone as talented as James have such an inept son? Harry was about to argue, but Ron kicked him before he could. Good thing too, he already had weekend detention, doesn't want another 2 days. After classes ended, Harry, Ron, and I went to Hagrid's shack. I was still a bit upset with Harry, but since Neville is fine, I'll let it go. Chapter 18, Setting Hagrid Straight. Once we made our way across the grounds, we found a sort of rundown wood and stone shack on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. The moss on the side of the stone paired with the light of a small wood fire inside made for a nice aesthetic. Outside the door, there is a metal leash, large muddy boots, and a crossbow resting against the hut. The door itself is a well-made plank door that appears to have had a lot of love and fine craftsmanship put into it. Wonder what the bow is for? I think to myself as Harry steps past me with a pip in his step. As Harry knocks on the door, we hear Hagrid's voice inside. Down, Fang, back up. The door slowly swings open, revealing Hagrid standing in the doorway holding a big black dog by the collar. Come on in, boys. He holds the door open for Ron and Harry but starts to close it as I am walking in. I grab the door as he is closing it and shove it open, knocking Hagrid back a little. Ah, sorry, didn't see you there, Mr. Black, he says with an oopsie smile. I just ignore it and step past him inside, petting the big dog as I do. The hut is pretty small, only the size of a large living room. There is an open fireplace on one wall with a copper kettle in it with a large bed to one side. Make yourselves at home. Hagrid let go of Fang, who just leaps on Ron and started licking his face, covering it in slobber. Hagrid walks over to the kettle and started to prepare tea for all of us. This is Ron. He pointed at the slobber-covered Ron, and this is Soren. I give a silent nod and a cutesy smile. Another Weasley eye. I was fond of your brother Charlie, talented with animals that one. Spent most of me life chasing him away from the forest. He looks reminiscently at the fire as he stokes the flames. They all begin talking about Filch. Harry and Ron had already gotten in trouble with him on the very first day. Not that I'm surprised, although they weren't bad, they were not good at rules. Filch's cat Mrs. Norris is the real annoying on ya here. She'll give you a good follow for hours if she thinks you're up to no good. In my opinion, I ought to introduce her to Fang. At this point, it is obvious that Hagrid is leaving me out of the conversation on purpose. After getting bored of listening, I decide to find out why. I cut Hagrid off from his rant about cats being boring and ask politely, Hagrid, why do you dislike me? Hagrid freezes but eventually sighs and replies, boy, you know your father. I nod. Indeed, I know him quite well. I also know you quite well. Hagrid looks surprised. Well, your father and I aren't on the best of terms. He avoids eye contact as he puts the tea in the kettle. I start to get a little angry. Hagrid, it's weren't now, my father has passed away. Also you, better than anyone know that you shouldn't trust the Ministry to get the right man for the crime. Voldemort had a lot more control over the Ministry than you would think. Ron flinches and Harry seems surprised that I used you-know-who's real name. Hagrid doesn't seem bothered and appears to be thinking. Do you think it mere coincidence that he offered his memories at the risk of brain damage and was declined? Do you think it is a coincidence that there was no trial for the crime? Do you think it is a coincidence that he was ruled insane at the moment of his capture? I grip my wand as I push back the darkness gathering in my mind. Hagrid looks a little ashamed. I'm sorry for your loss. But there is no way your father is innocent, considering he was the only one who knew, the truth bearer and all that. Harry and Ron seem confused about everything at this point. What if I told you Peter Pettigrew was the true secret bearer and Sirius was just the decoy? That is why Sirius tried to K*LL Pettigrew, Muggles got in between them and died as a result. Hagrid looks taken aback by my statement. While both Ron and Harry look as if they on a different planet, unaware of what we are talking about. We are talking about the fact Sirius was falsely imprisoned for giving the Potters' whereabouts to Voldemort, when it actually was Pettigrew who betrayed them. He faked his death and hid in his animagus for these 10 years. What do you mean tried? He slaughtered him. Only left a finger behind. I question with a raised eyebrow as I begin to calm down. Do you know of any spells that would leave a finger left? Any spell that would K*LL someone like that would not destroy everything but leave behind a finger. Although this is new information I got from learning Pettigrew was still alive, I am not wrong in my words. There is almost no way to leave just a finger behind. Hagrid seems to fall into deep thought, rare for the oaf. I need to talk to Dumbledore about this. If what you're saying is true, I'm sure Dumbledore will become very busy. We both had not mentioned the Potters once, as to not tip off Harry. When we were done yelling at each other, Harry interjects. I forgot Hermione mentioned it on the train as well. What was your father locked up for? At this question Ron's ears visibly perked up. He was imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. They say he K*LLED 13 muggles and his friend with only a single curse. Although he was talented, I can assure the number of people capable of K*ling that many with only one spell can be counted on one hand, and he wasn't on that list, since he was only 21 at the time. I turned to Hagrid with a stern face. He's not the only one who knows what it is like to be framed for something he didn't do. Hagrid. Ron and Harry ask in unison. It's not something I am proud of, I don't want to talk about it, sorry boys. He honestly looks like he would cry if he continued. Ron and Harry seem to get it and only nod. After that Ron notices the newspaper sitting on the center wood table. Gringotts break-in latest. Investigations continue into the break-in at Gringotts on July 31st, widely believed to be the work of dark wizards or witches unknown. Gringotts goblins today insisted that nothing had been taken. The vault that was searched had been emptied the same day. Harry's brows raise as he reads the article. Hagrid, this break-in happened the day we went, it must have been happening while we were there. It's even the same vault you pulled from. Didn't hear o it. Hagrid looks skittish at the mention of the break-in. He obviously knows more than what he is saying, but we don't push it. As we are leaving, Hagrid doesn't look that good, his face is pale. Maybe I was a bit too hard on him. I feel kind of bad. I know Hagrid is a really nice guy and is only mad for James and Lily's sake. But the fact that Sirius was so hated by everyone for the sacrifice he made that no one knew about just made me so angry. As we are walking back, I confronted Harry about what had happened between him and Neville in potions. I was zoning out. I was thinking about what I said to Snape. How it made me seem no better than Dudley, making fun of Snape for his childhood struggles. Harry looks conflicted saying this. He is obviously regretful, causing me to sigh. At least he isn't a bad kid. I put my hand on his shoulder. Just be sure to apologize to Neville when he gets out of the infirmary. Harry just nods while looking down in thought. Chapter 19, Flying Lessons. On that Sunday a poster popped up in the common room. Flying lessons start this Thursday, 4th period with Slytherin. Honestly, I am looking forward to flying lessons. I can fly already if I use my shroud, but with a broom is completely different. I have never been able to practice flying with my shroud, so I am currently pretty slow, at best slightly faster than a car. But now I can finally get some practice in the air. On Thursday morning mail came again, and I got another letter from Auntie Dromeda telling me about how Sis Dora had taken her Masters in Defense against the Dark Arts. She got an E and on them. Now all she has to do is apply for an apprenticeship and she will be a full-fledged Auror. I write back 2 letters. One goes to Auntie. I tell her about how Harry got in trouble. I also brag a bit about how well I am doing in my classes. The second letter I write is to Sis, congratulating her on almost securing her dream and doing so well on her Masters, which usually takes a person years to get. I am genuinely happy for her. I notice Neville also got something in the mail, a package. One that he promptly tears open as soon as he gets his hands on it. It is a clear glass ball that has a golden band wrapped around it with mist floating inside of it. It's a remembrall. He exclaims. It glows red when you have forgotten something. Gran knows I'm really forgetful, that's probably why she got it for me. As he finishes his exclamation, the mist in the ball starts to turn a scarlet red. He stares into the ball with confusion. But I don't know what I've forgotten. I tap his shoulder and gesture at my robes. He springs up. I forgot to put on my robes. He yells in an exaggerated fashion. As he is about to walk away, I notice Malfoy passing by us, eyeing Neville's remembrall. I see his arm reach out about to snatch it, but I grab his arm as it gets close. Neville jumps back at my action, nearly falling over, making the whole table turn towards us. Malfoy quickly realizes he has been caught, starts to laugh it off. Sorry, I was reaching for some scones. Oh, has your table run out of food? I say with a smile, tightening my grip on his arm. He sneers and tried to pull back his arm, but I just tighten my grip, still smiling. Let go! He yells. At his yell, Snape notices what is happening and walks over. He looks at both of us. Is there a problem here? He speaks in his usual slow monotone speech. I shove a scone into his hand as I let go of my cousin's arm, still smiling. Nope, no trouble at all. Turning to Draco with an even bigger smile, his table just ran out of food. Right, Draco? He tosses the scone on the ground as he scoffs with a severe scowl. Draco quickly marches away like a mini Snape with his lackeys in tow while holding his arm. I smirked more seeing I hurt his arm quite a bit. He is fun to bully for some reason. Snape looks at me with his usual calm demeanor. I suggest you not cause any trouble, Mr. Black. He looks over at the other teachers eating breakfast. There are some who would much rather see you gone. I am a bit taken aback by his sincerity, but before I can reply he walks away. I watch his departing figure trying to figure out what the emotionally stunted man is thinking. I shake my head giving up after a while. He is too much of an enigma. As I leave the Great Hall, Neville catches me in the hall to thank me. I just wave off his thanks as we walk to our first class. Later that day we finally head out to a large courtyard where the flying lessons are held. The professor who is teaching us is called Madame Hooch. She has silver hair and yellow eyes, a strikingly odd combination. The courtyard is semi-enclosed and halfway between the castle and the Forbidden Forest. We all started crowding in the courtyard staring at the setup oddly. Not far away from the congregation are roughly 30 brooms, all in 2 lines around 5 feet away from each other. Hooch starts off the lesson by yelling at us, "What are you all waiting for? Choose a broom and stand on the left side of it." All of us follow her orders and line up next to our brooms of choice. The brooms themselves look like old-fashioned straw brooms from the 12th century. I'm pretty sure these are the same brooms Sid used while he was here. I muse to myself. "All right everyone, put out your right hand above your brooms." She shows us and we all followed. "Now yell, up." Her broom flies up into her hand with a snappy sound. I yell up and my broom comes first try. I look around and see both Harry also got it on the first try, and Malfoy on his second. Next to me, Neville and Hermione are both struggling to try to get their brooms to listen. Hermione's looked like a disobedient dog rolling on the ground, and Neville's broom just flat out wasn't listening to him, like it was anchored to the ground. After a while, Hooch begins to teach us about how to mount the broom. Soon everyone was straddling their broom properly, standing in line. Hooch gives us a satisfied nod. "When I blow my whistle you will kick off the ground hard. Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. 3, 2 dash." She is cut off as Neville jumped too early and is slowly flying away. "Come back here, Longbottom!" she yells after him. I roll my eyes at her lack of effort. He gets nearly 20 feet off the ground, swaying side to side, struggling to stay on his broom. I start to get worried as he is hovering in the direction of the Forbidden Forest. I turn to Hooch, who was just staring in a daze. "Professor Hooch, aren't you going to get him?" My chastising seems to snap her out of her daze. She gets on her broom and takes off in his direction, but as she nears him his broom jerks hard to the side, causing him to fall off. Hooch dives quickly to try and get him before he lands, but she isn't fast enough. Crack! Everyone goes pale. You can hear the loud crack upon impact and a few students gasp as he lays on the ground. I am the first to run up to him and students slowly surround us. His right forearm is broken just past the wrist. A few moments later Professor Hooch lands next to us and yells, "Everyone clear up, give the boy some room." I look up at her walking over. His arm is broken and I think he tore something. He needs to go to the infirmary. "All right, I will take him, everyone can wait here, no flying while I'm gone." I help Neville up while he is moaning in pain. "I'll help him there," I say, giving her a scowl. She just nods. Madame Hooch looks at the students. "I will lead the way, follow behind." She is obviously trying to not look incompetent. I roll my eyes at her words. If I had known this professor was so inept I would have saved him myself. We all head to the infirmary and Madame Pomfrey says he has to stay for a few days to recover. Magic is pretty amazing. A bone takes a few hours to heal and tendons only take a day or so. After I get back to the common room later that day, Hermione tells me that Harry got in trouble. He apparently competed with Malfoy in a flying contest when he stole Neville's Remembrall. McGonagall had seen him flying through her window and came to take him away. This honestly has me a bit worried. I don't want Harry to get into trouble twice in 2 weeks, but I am proud of Harry for standing up for his friend. Just like clockwork, Harry happily into the common room looking absolutely elated. He excitedly explains to us that he did not get in trouble, quite the opposite. McGonagall took him to meet with Oliver Wood, the Quidditch team captain, to tell him that she wants him to be the seeker for the team since they have an empty seat. We call Ron down from the dorm and tell him the news. He honestly seems to be more excited than Harry. He began to run around yelling about how Harry would be the youngest to be a seeker probably ever. After calming him down we head to dinner and talk about it almost all night. Fred and George even came over after hearing us talk. They began telling Harry about how Quidditch worked and the basic rules. Little did I know Fred and George are actually on the team, they are beaters. We kept chatting happily until Malfoy noticed us and came with his fat lackeys in tow. You eating your final meal, Potter? Harry scowls, standing up. You're a lot braver now that you're back on the ground and you've got your little friends with you. Wow, Harry is growing up quickly, I think, like a proud parent before cutting in. Isn't it just wrong to say little dot? I quietly sneer, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Ron laughs far louder than anyone else, causing me to smirk. Malfoy scoffs as his lackeys blush. I'll take you on, how about it, Potter? A good old-fashioned duel, no contact, wands only, we can even do it tonight. What, never heard of a duel before, Potter? Of course he has, I'm his second. Who is yours? Ron becomes serious as he speaks up for Harry. I really wanna smack Ron for getting Harry into a duel, but I just watch since these kids aren't threatening. Malfoy turns to his lackeys. Crabbe. He gestures at the slightly larger one, who smacks his large belly. We will duel at midnight in the trophy room. He walks away and we all turn to Ron. Don't do that again. I hear Malfoy sternly say to Crabbe as he smacks his fat rolls. What the hell, man, you can't just accept a duel for someone else. Ron looks down as Harry speaks up for himself. He pauses for a second before he sighs, it's fine. He turns to Ron. But what do you mean by you're my second? Ron casually says, it means I'll take over for you if you die. He starts to eat again like nothing happened, but people only die in proper duels, you know, with real wizards. The most you and Malfoy will be able to do is send sparks at each other. Neither of you knows enough magic to do any real damage. I bet he expected you to refuse, anyway. But what if I can't attack with my wand? Harry now looks concerned, he obviously doesn't know offensive magic. Then you throw the duel aside and bloody his nose with a good one. I sigh as I rest my hand on my face. Ron's remarks are too casual. This time Hermione interjects, for the first time having held in her thoughts until now. You can't, midnight is way past curfew, if you get caught you'll lose even more points for our house. At the mention of lost points Harry looks a bit ashamed. I just shake my head. We still have a while till the duel. I can show Harry an easy spell in the meantime. After that, we all head back to the Gryffindor common room to hang out till the duel. I seem to have persuaded Hermione that I can keep the two of them out of trouble. I can't, they are too dumb. Chapter 20, The Duel. In the hours before the duel, I was only able to get Harry to successfully cast Stupefy, once. However, considering that Harry knew virtually nothing about offensive magic to begin with, I can consider it good progress. The time has finally come, and as we are about to leave, Hermione comes down the stairs into the common room. She has a bit of a scowl, a bit off-put by her bright pink nightgown. I'm coming with you, she demands. No, you're not. Ron shoots back. I give Ron an odd look. Why does this boy feel like he is the leader? I turn to Hermione. He's right, you aren't coming, not in those bright pink robes at least. They stand out way too much. Her smile gets wide and she takes off her bathrobes, revealing her real robes were under the entire time. I can hear a loud groan come out of Ron. I smirk a bit, making him unhappy is a bit fun. This girl is too smart, seeing she has robes already on. I also sigh a bit and roll my eyes. Do you think it's a good idea to bring another? Harry asks. I shrug. I don't think she would take no for an answer anyway. We take our time sneaking to the trophy room on the 3rd floor. When we get there, Malfoy hasn't arrived yet, so I decided to show Harry the trophy his father had won. The crystal case glistened in the moonlight, full of cups, shields, plates, and statues of silver and gold. Harry, come here. I gestured to the case. One of the trophies in front, made of wood, had some bronze badges on it. The center one read James Potter 1971 Chaser. I pointed out to Harry. Whoa, Harry says, taken aback. My dad was a chaser. Yup, the best in his years at Hogwarts, so it's pretty fitting that you got placed as a seeker. Playing Quidditch is apparently in your blood. I pat his back as Ron also looks in admiration. As Harry is looking at the trophy in awe, I hear a meow come from down the hall. I quickly peer around the hall to see the shadow of Filch's cat approaching. Don't worry, Mrs. Norris will catch those kids if they are out of bed. I heard Filch say. I grab both the boys' shoulders as they are distracted. Guys, it's a trap, Filch is coming. Let's get out of here. I gesture to Hermione to go first as I say in a loud whisper. As we are stepping silently out the opposite corridor, I see Mrs. Norris look at me and meow loudly. "Run!" I yell in a hushed tone. We all break into a sprint down the corridor. As an opening comes up on our right, I hear Harry speak. "This way." He turns into the doorway and runs right into the backside of a painting. He tears right through it and falls through, then Ron on top of him, then Hermione on top of them both. I check behind us to see Mrs. Norris way down the hallway. Luckily she isn't looking this way. I quickly pick them up like fallen puppies and we continue down the corridor. This time at a much less rushed pace. It let out at the end of the hallway next to our charms class. Seeing how far we are from Filch, I calm down a bit as we begin to walk. I guess it's not a loss. Now Harry knows how to defend himself and we didn't actually get caught, I say, trying to lift the mood. "Malfoy ratted us out," Hermione points out. Both Harry and I nodded. "I'll break his nose next time I see him," Ron says, making me roll my eyes. "Oh, son of a," I'm cut off by a rather annoying voice. "Hello, children." Peeves floats down in front of us with a stupid grin. "Peeves, I swear, if you I'm cut off again. Don't worry. I'm doing this for your own good." A wicked smile grows on his face. "Run," I speak in a half yell and take off down the hall. The trio quickly follows behind me. Kids are out of bed. Kids are out of bed in the chamber corridor. Peeves yells as loud as he can. Anger fills my head as I slow down and get behind the trio. I project my voice to the stupid spectre out of anger. "If you show your face in front of me again, you will be devoured." I turn back ahead to see we are running straight at a door. As Ron and Harry touch the door first, they jiggle it aggressively. "It's locked," Ron says in a terrified yet quiet tone. "Move over." Hermione pushes Harry and Ron out of the way. She puts her wand up to the lock and chants Alohomora. The door lock clicks and starts to swing open. We all pile in and quickly close it behind us. As we turn around, we see a giant 5-meter-tall 3-headed dog with pitch-black fur. The room was small, it was only big enough to hold the dog, but I notice the dog is resting on top of a trapdoor. The dog seems to be sleeping, but I pull out my wand just in case it wakes up. Everyone else is petrified. "Slowly open the door, we have to be quiet," I whisper. Ron slowly starts to open the door since he was the last one in. Even while opening it slowly, it makes a creaking sound. I flinch seeing the dog slowly shakes its head before groggily opening its eyes. "Go, go, go," I say, push both Harry and Hermione behind me. The dog quickly gets up upon noticing us. Both Ron and Hermione got out before it could get back. I push Harry out of the room roughly as I step back, assuming a casting stance. Before it can get too close, I chant Petrificus Totalis. A white light leaves my wand, striking the dog on its closest head. The dog freezes as its legs curl and falling over with an incredibly loud thud. I sigh, turning away from its snarled muzzle only a few feet away. I look at Harry on the ground. "Let's go," Harry nods, terrified by tonight's events. As we close the door, I can hear the dog bark and hop up. The bark is quickly followed by a slam I can only assume is its body striking the door. How did it get free so fast? What a resistant creature! I think to myself. We all rush back to the center of the corridor where a small exit is. It leads to the main stairwell. We got really lucky, the staircase is aligned to the entrance of Gryffindor's common room perfectly. As soon as we get in, I hear Ron start to yell, "What in the bloody hell are they thinking? Keeping such a dog like that locked up in a school for children? You don't use your eyes, do you?" Hermione interjects. "What do you mean?" Harry asks, only a bit less shaken than Ron. "There was a trapdoor. It was underneath the dog," I add, rubbing my forehead. I was too busy staring at its teeth to notice. Harry shivers. "We could have been KLLED, or worse, expelled." She sighs. "Now if you don't mind, I'm going to bed." I just shake my head. She is right, that was dumb. We should go to bed as well. Ron and Harry nod. "We have potions in the morning and I don't want Snape to have any more reasons to hate me," Harry says. That morning when we head to breakfast, we see Malfoy already eating. When he sees us, his jaw drops and his food almost falls out. I turn to Ron and Harry. "I'll be right back." I walk over to Malfoy. He looks kind of scared as I approach him with a smile on my face. "Hey, I have some stuff to discuss. Would you mind coming to have a chat out in the courtyard?" Malfoy looks back and forth between Crabbe and Goyle, then finally nods with newfound confidence. "Yeah, I wouldn't mind chatting with you." He has a smug smile. "Great, just follow me." My smile gets wider. Across the room I see Ron and Harry looking at me with concern. Malfoy stands up with Crabbe and Goyle close in tow behind him. As we walk out I notice Harry and Ron start to follow far behind trying to be stealthy. They aren't good at it. When we make it to the main courtyard it is completely empty, probably since it's too early. I turn around to face all three of them while pulling out my wand. They are smiling like I am a lamb to the slaughter. They all start to pull out their wands but I am not that nice. Stupefy, stupefy, expelliarmus. I wave my wand and chant 3 times. I don't chain the spells, I simply cast them quickly. Mainly because I don't want to reveal my cards to any spying eyes. Crabbe and Goyle both fall to the ground unconscious and Malfoy's wand goes flying. As the 2 fat kids fall I shake my head in disappointment. Simply too large for their own good. I smirk as I look back up at Malfoy. You know, I may not know how to do many charms or transfigurations but I know my defense against the dark arts very well. I also know quite a few curses. Courtesy of House Black. Malfoy falls back and starts to scream Silencio. I quickly cast before he can attract any attention. He tries to scurry away from me. Locomotor mortis. His legs latch together and he can't scurry anymore. He desperately tries to pull himself away, tugging at the grass. I walk up to stand above him, putting my foot on his hand to stop him. Don't worry, I won't be too harsh since we didn't actually get caught. My smile grows wider. Calvario. All the hair on his head begins to fall off till he looks like a naked mole rat. You won't tell anyone about this, right? Malfoy shakes his head vigorously, which makes me laugh. I'm kidding, you won't be able anyway. Mimble wimble. I cast the tongue-tying curse so he can't speak of what has happened this morning. I peer at him over my shoulder as I step over to the 2 fat lugs. Give my regards to my aunt though. I stand above the unconscious Crabbe and Goyle and do the same. I find a bit of joy in making them bald and unable to speak of what happened to them. I smile as I walk back into the castle to see Ron and Harry slack-jawed while hiding behind small stone pillars. That was wicked, Ron says as he grows a large grin. Yeah, you have to teach me sometime, Harry says, nodding in agreement. I shrug. Sure, maybe later, let's go eat for now, I'm hungry. I look back to see Malfoy struggling to stand up. He knew the counter curse. Hey! Although leg locking is a common trick, I'm still surprised he knew the counter curse. Later that day at Potions we once again see Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle walk into Potions late and get into trouble. Everyone was laughing at them for being bald but I just pretend I see nothing. At least I was nice enough to let them keep the eyebrows. What caught me by surprise was Hermione tapping my shoulder. What did you do to them? Her question finally makes me laugh. Just a little payback. She probably knows it was me because they have been glaring at me from the moment they stepped into the classroom. I just shrug and continue doing our assignment, ignoring the glares from the 3 monks.
Thanks for listening.